Oh, my mic was off that whole time. I just. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, yeah. Well, welcome to the stream, guys. Great to have Base Northwood on. We're still learning as we go here. It's gonna be a while till I'm a pro, but that's all right. But yeah, just sitting down to have a nice little conversation. My first thing I wanted to ask, because I live in Canada, so naturally a lot of our system, like political, culturally, otherwise, is based on the UK, obviously. But I never really interacted with many people that are from the UK itself. What is life actually like these days, like growing up? Like, because I know that in some places in Europe, like the way that they split their school system is very different than what they have in North America, and just culturally there's a lot of differences. But like, what is it actually like growing up in the UK from your own personal experience?
All things considered, it's quite nice. I grew up in the countryside, in just like a quaint little countryside village, raised by my mother. And yeah, I mean, as far as I was concerned as a child, like I went to school. I didn't like school. I hated it. I did hate school for, some of the reasons were definitely culturally specific, because I was also constantly dealing with like the cultural divide between Britain and Iceland, because I was born and raised here, but I was kind of constantly going back and forth, and sometimes I would spend some random stretch of time in school in Iceland. And there were definitely things about going to school in Iceland, at least, that were a bit nicer. Like, for a kid, going to school and not having to wear a uniform, which is obviously a lot more common in the US. That was great. I fucking loved that. And then I would come back from Iceland and go back to school in Britain, and I'd be wearing like, well, a uniform, and then I was going to a private school at some point, and that was like a full blazer and tie situation, and that just like completely rubbed me the wrong way. I wasn't a fan.
And it wasn't like just like for private schools, like everybody, like even in the public school system, had to wear like stuff like this.
Yeah, I mean, uniform in general. In like the state schools, they're a bit more like they're a lot more. In the state schools, you just wear like a t-shirt and black trousers. You have like a full outfit. Like you have like the school shoes. Well, not like school specific shoes. You have shoes that you wear for school, which are like kind of boring black trainers type of things. And then these like black / grey trousers, and then the top will just be like the school brand, and that's just like a t-shirt or a polo shirt or like a t-shirt and a jumper. If you're in a private school, they're usually like blazers and ties, so like a white shirt and a tie and a blazer. Yeah, it's just kind of jarring and a bit annoying as a child going, which like from one place where I'm like, wow, I don't have to wear a uniform. Uniforms suck, and I can just wear my normal clothes, and then going straight back to Britain and dealing with like British teachers, which are uniquely annoying because a lot of them are just like sexist women who take out their frustrations on the children. I literally started this by saying that all things considered, it was nice, and now I'm just like completely ragging on it. School, I didn't like school. I think that's like all I can really say is that I just didn't like school. There was it was just wasn't like particularly bad or anything. It was just as far as school goes, I just didn't enjoy it. But yeah, like growing up in Britain, as I say, like growing up in the countryside, was great. Like mum was one of those who was like, get out of the house and come back at dinner time sort of thing. And where I lived was like really, really just pleasant. Nice split between like residential, thing, and then like loads and loads of nature, woods everywhere and stuff like that. So yeah, I would just fuck off and go and meet with friends if I had any, or just go on my bike or something. It was nice. It was pleasant. I liked it.
Yeah, just going out, lighting shit on fire. That's what I did. Like growing up.
I definitely did a bit of that. Building like mud ramps in the woods to like cycle over and stuff. climbing my fair share of trees, picking garlic leaves.
Yeah,
There was a lot of wild garlic that grew near us. That was nice. Yeah, that was good.
Oh, gotcha. Because I actually I had to wear a uniform too, but not here. Even though I am Canadian, like a citizen of Canada now, I came from Uzbekistan, which is an old it's an old ex-Soviet state in Central Asia, and naturally, when the Soviets took a lot of these states into their sphere of influence, they enforced their like education standards upon them, language standards, so on and so forth. So like going to school, I had to wear uniform, you know, like yourself, dress shoes, the whole thing, suit and tie when you're showing up. I didn't have to do it for long because by the time that I became like 7 or 8, we came to Canada, and the whole notion of uniforms just flew out the window there, obviously.
Yeah.
But I do remember doing that, and it just being the worst fucking thing ever. Like I'm sure that like to an extent there's definitely some use to it in regards to like getting children to, you know, just follow rules despite not wanting to. Like I understand there's a utility to that, especially later on in life, forcing yourself to do things that you don't want to. But man, as a kid, it's on another level. You just fucking hate it. Everyone looks the same. It's in 30-degree heat. You're walking out, still like all buttoned up. Oh,
yeah, dude.
Not ideal.
Yeah, and like yeah, I mean, experiencing the Soviet education system, maybe you're a lot more familiar with British education than you might think.
Oh yeah, why is that?
I mean, I say that sort of half ironically. I don't actually know how true that might be. Like British schools do get sort of, I mean, they certainly have like a reputation to them. It's definitely like a cartoonish kind of outward image. I mean, I've never been to school in like America or anything, so like there's not many ways that I can really compare. But I think, yeah, I mean, my only other reference point is going to school in Iceland, which was just like a lot more. I always felt like it was just a lot more relaxed, clean. Why did I say clean? Well, that's just because we took our shoes off. In school.
Oh, like like you guys like would walk into the classroom and you'd have to take your shoes off.
Yeah.
Which
is, that was always interesting. Yeah.
It's very Japanese.
Then like, but then yeah, there's just like the other stuff. Like obviously in like school there and schools in American stuff, you have like cooking classes and like carpentry classes and like these other classes. They're a little bit more interesting. Whereas here, you know, health and safety regulations abound. They just don't really let kids do nearly as much. It's just more rigid. It's more like formulaic. You just have like theoretical classes, just like math, science, whatever, and then like in science, you have very small scale, limited experiments. Yeah, no cooking, no carpentry and stuff. There are schools that have like DT. I don't remember what that stands for. Design technology. It's like similar. But yeah, they're just not the same in any way. And I just, as a child, I just always felt better in school in Iceland. I just felt like there was just less of a weight on my neck. You know.
Interesting. So you guys in the UK, you don't. It's not as prevalent to have like a home ec class or like a shop class, like where you like those stereotypical like, American movies where you see all the table saws and whatnot. You guys don't really have anything like that over there.
No.
Strange. Yeah, we had a bit of that here in Canada, but the thing is, I think it's a more of like a generational thing because in the like 70s and 80s and 90s, like they certainly had like a lot of those programs here, and you would see it like in old photos just going through the school of all the like class photos of shop class and whatnot. And the high school that I went to, they didn't have it, but the one down the road did. They even had like an automotive repair class where they would like actually like bring in cars, and the kids would like take it apart, take out the engine, you know, do what needed to be done. But I remember going to school, and the year that I was about to go into high school. So for us, it's the way it's segmented is public school, it goes from grades so 1 to 5. Middle school is
Yeah.
6 to 8, and then it's 9 to 12 for the high school. So like 6 to 8, we kind of got like a little bit of taste of it. We had like home ec. I remember my teacher, she actually had like these washing machines in the class so that we could learn how to do laundry, which, you know, like it might seem silly, but man, the amount of people that I went into like university with that had like no idea how to do their laundry, I was like, holy shit, those people actually needed that class. Now I understand.
Yeah.
But we never had like you see in those American movies or like TV shows, there's always an episode where like the kids have to partner up and take care of like an egg or like a sack of flour or something as a baby. I never had anything like that. Never did.
I have an egg in life. That kind of rings bells, doesn't it? Maybe it is. I don't know. I can't remember. Yeah, there's just one of the things that definitely stood out to me a bit was like trust. Like classes like that sort of require you to trust the children to some level. Like you put kids in like a carpentry shop with bandsaws and stuff like that, and you're like, the agreement is like kids aren't going to be retarded and just run their hand into a fucking circular saw. Ideally.
Yeah.
And there just like isn't really any trust for children here. Everything is just a lot more overbearing. Just teachers are just always breathing down your neck to some level, do anything yourself. And yeah, they just like institutionally don't trust children to like, you know, upward without killing themselves.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. It certainly felt like that here in Canada in some places, because I'd switched high schools in my term. My family, we moved to a different neighborhood in the city to get to a better school, and seeing just the way that some of the teachers were like, you could tell that they were clearly like mentally ill and did not like legitimately. There was in grade 9, I remember my math teacher, it was like an open secret that he was bipolar, and he would have episodes like with children in class where like he'll go from being psychotic and angry to just chill and everything is fine. Like I don't understand how the man could even have a job. I genuinely don't understand how he passed like the minimum to get that requirement, because it was unbelievable in some ways looking back. Like how could they possibly hire someone like that and also keep them after like all these incidents? And that wasn't even the worst of it. I remember this one teacher, it wasn't even about how bad she was. It was just how she neglected the job. She had gotten pregnant halfway through the term, and every single day we'd come in, she'd just give us some worksheets, and then she'd go on her computer and like read her email or whatever. We later discovered that she had a Pornhub subscription because she kept her email open, and then some kids decided to snoop around, which was kind of funny. But yeah, it really dawned on me like how strange it was that a lot of these people like you could tell that they didn't like kids. They detested them, and they took it out on us any chance they got.
Yeah, I don't really understand how it ends up being so prevalent. Teachers in education who just like don't like children and just kind of don't really seem like they want to be there. Definitely a common situation in the UK at least. Very annoying. Went to private school briefly in Iceland as well. I was fucking all over schools. And there was just that was very. I don't think it had been around for very long, and it was very like makeshift. It was fine, it looked fine and everything, but like the teachers and the people that they had in to do stuff was like seemingly extremely random.
In what way?
And there was this one guy who came in, and he was our math and science teacher, and maybe something else. Micah from Yukon, Canada, like the provinces, yeah. And he was like a really nice chap. Like I liked him and everything, but it's like this is one time in science, we were doing like microscope experiment. We had the slides with the I think like muscle and heart tissue and stuff, and we were looking at that kind of thing. And we sort of just got everything done quite fast, and he just didn't really know what to do with himself. He was like, well, you know, we were all just kind of sitting there, just like, yeah, just kind of twiddling our thumbs, including him. And I was like, why don't we look at some blood? He's like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, can I just get like a pin and just, you know, stab my finger and just put some blood in some slides? And he was like, all right. But then, oh no, yeah, that's what I did. Jesus, I grabbed a pin. And I was like, I'll give us some blood to look at. And he was like, just completely fine with this. So I grabbed a pin, and I was sitting there, like I picked out one of these veins, like probably that one there.
Oh, you went for a vein? Oh.
And I was just like I was like stabbing it, and I was trying to draw blood, and I was there for like a couple minutes, just somehow not really being able to, like, you know, stick a needle into my arm. And after like a couple of minutes of this, he was like, okay, whoa, and just took the pin, grabbed my finger, and just like stabbed it and drew blood on my finger, and then, I mean, put some blood on some slides, and we couldn't, like, it was pointless anyway, because like you need the
light, like, the material it?
Yeah, and you need the material to be, you know, like almost a single cell thin across the sheet, and obviously he just kind of poured like my blood on a sheet, and it was just like too thick as useless. You couldn't look at it. But then at the time, this is all funny and everything, and then after, I was kind of thinking about this, and I just realized how fucking insane that whole interaction was. Like, not only was the science teacher allowing me to just kind of pick at an artery, and was waiting for me to draw blood.
Yeah.
But also like, you know, instead of like stopping or kind of realizing the kind of coming to his senses, he just like figured that he should draw blood from another place in my finger. That, you know, that in and of itself, like, do that in Britain and you'll just be like put in prison probably.
Oh yeah, that's a scandal. That's a scandal right there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nice chap. I remember he was trying to teach us like expanding and factorizing quadratics in a math class once, and I couldn't get it so hard I started crying. And just after a few weeks, I remember it was one of those chats where he was like, "You are going to be making sandwiches in McDonald's." And I was like,
wow.
Because I was just like, this is a really weird time in my life where, like, I just hated school. I didn't want to be there, and I was just like skipping everything and just being like a bit of a nuisance. But yeah, just kind of being generally a bit of an asshole because I just didn't want to be there. And look at me now.
Look at you now. Twitter famous.
Semi-unemployed on Twitter.
Micro celebrity, as they call it, right?
As they call it, yeah.
Wow, that is that's quite the story. We never did anything hardcore like that in science class. I mean, like I remember we dissected the eye of a sheep once.
Yeah.
Took apart the lenses and like took a look at it. The classic thing is like you're supposed to dissect a frog. We had pig fetuses.
Whoa, nice.
Well, see, it sounds nice, but the problem with pig fetuses is that in order to like give it the whole diagram where the body's splayed out, you have to break the hip bone and like a couple of joints. And I remember I had these girls in my class. We were partnered up, and they were like, "Yeah, we ain't fucking doing that. You're the dude, so by all means have at it." And I could still like remember just the feeling of like you keep bending it and bending the hips and bending it, and you're like, Jesus fucking Christ, when is this thing gonna fucking snap? I thought this was a baby. What the hell, man? Yeah, it took some effort, and the smell. Oh, the fucking, because they're just in that formaldehyde kind of like solution to preserve them. Oh, that fucking smell! It wouldn't get out of my clothes for the longest time. That was probably the most like hardcore thing. But with the blood, that actually reminds me of what you mentioned. I had a microscope kit as a kid. So I would like if I found something interesting I wanted to look under, like I'd put it under and just see what it looked like. The most interesting thing that I saw, honestly, it wasn't even like a flesh or anything. It was a cucumber, because a cucumber looked like a super highway underneath the microscope. Just the way that the cells moved, it was really interesting. I did use my blood once, and I tried to see what would happen if I put it in like a little test tube and it stayed there for a week, which did not yield the results that I had wanted because it just coagulated and it turned to shit. But more to the point, like that's important for kids to do, you know, like to explore that kind of part of science. Like it's gross, or like, oh, there might be like a lawsuit or whatever, like, but that the risk that's associated. Well, yeah, like with the risk that's associated with it, like there's something to be gained there. It's not just like doing worksheets all the time. You're never gonna learn shit like that.
That is true. I didn't dissect nearly enough things. I would have loved to, but yeah, all my biology classes were never. We did in Iceland in this private school. We did the pig's eyeballs. I remember that was a nightmare. They're like impossible to stab or perforate. But other than that, I had like one run-in with like pig organs, and then other than that, never did like the dissecting a frog or anything, which is a shame.
Yeah. Oh, this right here. That just reminded me of what the whole thing looked like. Cause yeah, the eyeball. I'd always thought that it was like fluid. I didn't think that it actually had like an encasing in it. Like
Yeah.
I didn't understand that it had like all these hard like parts to it. But no, it was interesting doing that little experiment, because it just reminds you, like, yeah, underneath all that little veneer, that's essentially what we're all like.
We all just some skin for real.
Yeah, just blobs of flesh. But no, you mentioned earlier how you were surprised that with how easy it is for people that are mentally unstable to become teachers. I actually, going into university, that was my initial plan, was to be a teacher. And I looked into the requirements, at least here in Canada, and that was all I needed to know. I was like, oh well, yeah, no wonder we had so many fucking like just absolute mentals, because all it requires, at least here in the province of Ontario, 1 year of teachers college. So after graduating your university, you would go into the college, do that for 1 year. You know, they teach you basic instruction, I guess, or just how to structure a class or how to deal with rowdy kids, so on and so forth. And then just a basic, like a bachelor's degree. And it doesn't even have to be one that takes like 4 years to finish. You could do like a 3-year program in like English or something. And so because of these like extremely low standards, what ended up happening was the market got flooded with teachers. So you had all these new grads that were going out thinking that there was a lot of opportunity, when in reality all they were doing is like just being substitutes for teachers for the longest time. Getting like a quote-unquote tenured position was extremely difficult. And as soon as like all the wave of social justice was washing over here in Canada, I was like, yeah, I don't want to participate in that system. That looks fucking awful. Like I don't want to be doing land acknowledgements at the beginning of every class. Like, no thank you. You laugh. You laugh, but that's real, man. Yeah, that's real. That's real.
Yeah. Only land acknowledgements doing around here are Nick land acknowledgements.
What land acknowledgements?
Nick land acknowledgements.
What do you mean?
Oh, he's fucking fake Axel. Nick Land, you know the guy?
Oh, Nick Lands. Oh, okay. Now I get what you mean.
Fucking absolutely, my time is just wasted on you guys. I just.
Yeah, it's weird though. My brother, he has 2 kids that are in the public school system right now. These 2 younger girls, my nieces. He was going into he was logging into one of those Zoom meetings. They were having like for the parent teacher conference. You know, they have it like once a month or something, and they even began that with a land acknowledgement, which I was like, what the guys? Like half of you are like behind the wheel right now, and half of you aren't even here in person. This is all digital. What's the purpose of this? I don't like, for what?
Yeah.
And a good friend, actually, the guy that I work with from Scotland, he actually pointed out to me. He's like, land acknowledgements are the most disrespectful thing ever because you're literally like you're making it clear, this is the land that used to be owned by such and such and such group. Now it's not.
You're literally, yeah, you're legitimizing the claim, which is opposed by like some uncountable number of like identities already. Like you're the fucking, you're just like the clueless white man who's just walked in, who's like walked onto some ancestral tribal land of like the fucking what fucking tribes do you
Ojibwe,
guys
Inuit,
have?
Mississauga.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You've like walked in. You walked into some like, you walked in onto like Inuit land, but that Inuit land, like 300 years ago, actually belonged to like the last guys, and now you're the clueless white man who's like, this land belongs to the Inuit, thereby angering like some swath of savages. That being said, Canadian indigenous folk seem to be very intelligent. They seem to. I'm aware that a bunch of them are like really successful real estate developers because they just kind of tuck the Canada government out of their own regulations.
Yeah, they have their own system. Like they're allowed to open certain businesses that that I certainly can't. But based on their identity, like they can. Like in the marijuana market in Canada, it exploded obviously as soon as Justin Trudeau got into power, and the natives have very, very different standards when it comes to like the kind of shops that they open. Like they will have shit that you wouldn't be able to get legally in the city.
It's so class. It's like over here, the best we can do is that like the Pakistani guy who runs the corner shop down the road won't check you, won't check your ID if you're buying an energy drink. That's about that's the closest we get here.
Wait, I'm sorry. You guys need to present ID when buying energy drinks?
Yeah.
Fuck off.
Desal Islands. Yeah, no, seriously. When you like self checkout, if you scan a Red Bull, it's like you need assistance. And like I've been ID'd for energy drinks, on a rare occasion.
Fuck off! No way.
Yeah. If there's anything that was like making sure that we are dying of stagnation, it's that.
I mean, look, I
Broadly.
I understand the impulse. I understand the idea behind it. I get it, but what's gonna stop me from fucking drinking 6 espressos on my way to school?
Well, yeah, no, and that's the fucking thing is that like the whole the whole point is like la protect kids. Energy drinks are like le bad for children.
Agreed.
Sure. But then you can just buy like an iced coffee. For like that doesn't flag you self checkout or anything. You don't get ID for that, so just buy a few of those, and it's like exactly the same thing.
Yeah, just ask for like an extra espresso shot, and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Or wait, what if I want to order it from Amazon? Do I still get like? Do they check my ID as well?
No.
Huh.
I think so. Anyway. I think it's just like at checkout. Speaking of natives, I think about this sometimes. Obviously there seems to be kind of. I mean, we have it here in Britain too. The subjugated peoples make it part of their personality to hate on the quote unquote colonizer. Very insufferable behavior, really. But obviously in America and probably Canada and stuff, you have like the meme of like the defiant Native American who's like flipping off Mount Rushmore and it's like fuck this stolen land, you guys have stolen land. And I sometimes think like, well, if you actually did something about it, then that would to some extent actually be respectful. I'm not talking about like murder and like killing people and like terrorism and stuff in the interest of ancestral land. Not like that. What really made me think about this was like the real estate developers in Canada, the like native real estate developers in Canada, where they are just like gaming the system. essentially one-upping, you know, like the quote-unquote colonizers because they like concede some thing to them, i.e. they concede like land and autonomy to them and say like, you guys can, you know, it's your land, like you guys can run, you can have your own like rules and regulations and stuff. And so what they do is they take that and they just say, okay, what we're going to do is get rid of all your fucking rules and regulations and just become like hyper successful real estate developers and businessmen, because we just got rid of like all of your stupid laws. And that to me is like that's respectable. That's like doing something about it. Like if you really want to, like, I need to stop saying like so much. If you really want to like flip off the big guy, you just take his handouts and use them against him, and become competitive in that sense. And just, you know, like when I say, you know, do something about it and stuff like that. Like I certainly mean more so in the sense of like economic competition rather than, you know, like physically taking up arms and stuff. Like that's cool. That's sick. That's putting it to the guy. But yeah, just like taking pictures of yourself like flipping off Mount Rushmore is just yay, silly.
Very homosexual coded activity, but I know exactly what you mean, because like there's been stories that came out in the last summer. So the CBC wrote articles about it, CTV did as well, about this native group that was buying up condos that were I think 60% of the actual market value. And in British Columbia, the problem is that with the way the housing market is in Canada right now, it's been in a bubble for a very, very long time. And there's a lot of people that are just kind of waiting for it to burst so that they can make their move. Because at this point, like buying a house, good fucking luck. Like my brother, he works for an airline, a major airline, and is in like the top like percentage of earners in Canada. And even he, like in the city like Toronto where I live, is unable to afford that. So the fact that they were able to, as you said, like use these handouts against them, by all means, like, hey, they're taking a W wherever they can.
Yeah. Very nice.
But in BC, yeah, they have the same issue where like it's extremely expensive to live there. I mean, on either coast of Canada, it typically is. When you get closer to the Maritimes, obviously it's going to be a lot cheaper, but with like the influx of migrants that we've had as of late, that's like really affected the market. And like ideally, hopefully within the next like year or two, as their visas expire and more of them are forced to leave, the things are going to level out. But there's no telling, because apparently I heard the other day that about 30,000 of these individuals, like the Border Services Agency has completely just lost track of them. So we're just kind of hoping. We're just kind of hoping that the housing market levels out, and that's not even getting into the whole issue of like foreign investment, like the amount of Chinese investment that goes into British Columbia, that just owns apartments and, you know, houses and all that just remain empty because they're assets for them. It's insane. It's actually crazy. People are paying like 90% of their income, or not 90%, but close to, just to be able to live.
Yeah, it was very silly, and I'm no expert on the matter, but I mean, the solution to this just seems to be, you know, build more stuff, build more housing, etc., etc. But we seem to be painfully incapable of doing that all over the place here in like the US and Canada and stuff. It's just kind of mind-boggling, really.
Yeah, I don't know what it's gonna take to kind of right this course. At the moment, our government seems very keen on just kind of pressing things as they are. They've kind of like changed their mind on certain things like immigration and whatnot, which is actually wild, because like that's what, like, Canada's known as the land of immigrants. Like that's our national reputation. That's why my parents, that's why we came here. Like we wanted to go to the US initially, rather they did. But they chose Canada instead because they got the idea that they were friendlier to immigrants. Like that's been the national story for the longest time. And in like 10 years time, the government has like completely reversed that. Like I used to be all for it. Like, yeah, by all means, like welcome all these people, great. And it just got to a point where it just became unsustainable. Like, okay guys, you need to fucking need to chill the fuck out. Like, we're actually just importing people that are bringing the strife from their other country abroad, like here to our land. I don't see what the purpose of that is. That all that does is just it makes everything worse. Doesn't improve their life. Like, why are they here chanting about something that's happening overseas? Go fight there. Like, we don't need you here doing that. Like, why? What's the point?
Yeah, I mean, you know, everywhere is like every country is a land of immigrants. Obviously, just the key difference is that like those immigrants were there with a prime directive, which was, you know, make a functional life and improve the state of affairs. There is also, yeah, there is actually also that like the sort of moral element. Obviously, in a lot of cases, Iceland, for example, is taking in a lot more immigrants, and that's having its own large number of very initially unpredictable consequences that no one could see coming. But why? And obviously, it sort of comes from a place of sympathy, I suppose you could say. You just have people in government policymakers who just think to themselves, there's much strife and trouble in the world, and we must be the ones to open our arms and welcome these people, such that they can rebuild their life and escape these troubled situations. Which is all well and good, but especially in the case of Iceland, but certainly a broader problem. It's like, you come here, we let you in, but then we don't actually have like we don't even have particularly good infrastructure or sort of developmental plans in place already ourselves. Regardless of you, like, you know, if we're in the UK or Canada or Iceland, whatever, and it's like we don't have enough housing already. It's like, well, now we've brought you in, and now you're just homeless. You're just immediately automatically homeless. So you just kind of gone from like one shit situation to the next shit situation because we didn't actually have the means to look after you in the first place. Obviously, the UK very smartly circumnavigates this problem by just cramming them all into hotels, which is very generous on that part. But yeah, no, I do think there's like, sort of, regardless of what you think about immigration or whatever, it's like, well, unless you already actually have the means to be taking in all these people and actually like putting them in a house with a bed and stuff, you're just importing a bunch of people from some part of the world, and now you're just automatically making them homeless and destitute, and just, as I say, just like from one shit situation to the next. Why? But like, why do that? It's pointless.
Yeah, and that is certainly the reality. I remember when about 2 years ago, I think, when we were just starting to kind of see the effects of the mass migration here in Canada, there was a homeless shelter in the north end of my city that well, it wasn't a shelter, it was I think it was a church or some other organization like that, and they didn't have enough room for people, so they had some of these migrants sleeping in tents outside, just because like they literally just they couldn't accommodate all these people, especially in the north end of the city where like you would need a car to get around anywhere. And a guy just like straight up froze to death just in his tent overnight. And when I heard that story, I was like, that's not like this isn't, who is that compassionate to? Like, was this man like really coming from a war-torn country where he would have been persecuted and killed on sight? I don't know. They never really talked much about on that story, but just hearing stuff like that, or even seeing them, there's this one area in downtown Toronto where, like, literally close to the entertainment district, they had one of these shelters, and in the dead of winter, when it gets to -20 and close to -30, all these people are just sleeping out in tents. It's like, that this isn't, what good is this doing to them? They come here and they, like you said, they essentially just live as homeless or close to.
Yeah.
And for what? So they could deliver our Uber Eats? Like, I could walk to the shop just fine, man. Like, I'm good. I don't need it that badly.
Yeah. Yeah, in which case, hence the hence the extremely generous. Like in the UK, it's seriously not. It's a non-trivial problem, and drain on the treasury to be importing. In what was the statistic? In the year leading up to June 2024, we imported 3% of our population.
Wow.
Yeah, in 1 year. And this obviously becomes an extremely significant issue, because to avoid that problem of like all of these people just ending up in a shit/worse situation where they're just freezing to death on the street and they're homeless and stuff, you have to give them a lot of things. You have to give them like a hotel or housing, and then like benefits and like food and all this kind of stuff. And that's genuinely
Caseworker.
really, really, and it's like really expensive. It costs a lot of money. And certainly contributes to the broad array of things that are causing, at least in the UK, our decline, given that we recorded negative 0.1% growth for this fiscal year, or this year, whatever.
Yeah, we've had the same thing. Our national GDP has had a down quarter. I think the second or third time in a row now. I think our dollar compared to America is the lowest that it's been, even during COVID. I think the exchange rate is at like 0.6 right now, something like that. And not even to mention, I just found this article yesterday where, let me see if I can find the link. Yeah, here it is. Where migrants were getting upwards of $224 in food and accommodation per day, which, like, just to kind of put it in perspective, I work at a decent job at a veterinary clinic. I don't make that much in a day if I work a 10-hour shift. Like, and that's include like like all the taxes and everything that gets taken off of it. Like, I don't even make this much, and I'm working like a decent job. Like, it's not minimum wage to step up above it, and even I'm not making this much. Like, what sense does that make?
Yeah, it's strange. Very much in some kind of weird, bizarro world at the moment. The nice thing for you guys, similar to America, is that you are going through a rough patch, and you're having a nice, healthy reaction in the opposite direction to get out of it. I assume come your next election, Justin is just going to be like obliterated, and I suppose that Pierre chap will get in.
Yeah, Pierre Poilievre, maybe. It looks that way, but I don't know. I honestly can't tell. Like, a lot of people are kind of tired of the status quo, as you said. There's that kind of reaction to it, but Canadians are notorious for bending over until they can't. So, like, with the trucker convoy, we saw, the straw break the camel's back there, but that took a lot. And even when it did break, the entire media establishment went along with the government's narrative of these people being racist, sexist Nazis, which couldn't be further from the truth. It was an outright lie and absolute smear campaign. Like, it was to the point where the CBC, our national broadcast media, was writing articles talking about how the word freedom is coded with the far right. Which, I mean, like, that's
which is completely true. I mean, let's be honest. Freedom, who needs that shit? That's for racists and misogynists, and like,
freedom starts with the same letter that the word fascist starts with, and that's not a coincidence.
That is not a coincidence whatsoever.
Yeah, so like we are seeing a bit of a reaction to it, but this has been like a very, very slow build up. There was a handful of incidents that had kind of helped bring this turn about. Like, there was one incident where a truck driver, this man from India that came over, he had ran through a stop sign out in the country somewhere in his like 16-wheeler or whatever, and ended up killing a family of 3, I think it was. His wife or girlfriend or whomever was pleading the public to not deport him. He's a nice man, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, like, you committed a crime. You don't even have citizenship. That should be automatic deportation, no questions asked. I don't know where the case landed, but it was little stories like that kind of came out of the woodwork. where people were like starting to have second thoughts, and especially with the way that things are at the grocery store and how expensive things are, everyone's like, all right, let's calm it down a little. We don't need to be this open.
Yeah. The unfortunate situation here is that we're like just now getting to grips and fully understanding, and like sort of, I suppose you could say the vibe is shifting, so to speak, regarding the fact that the UK is basically just dead in the water. Unfortunately, the reaction to that has been Labour, which is like the one party you don't want to come in at the beginning of like chronic recession.
Is that the left leaning or the right leaning party? I'm not familiar with UK politics, to be quite honest.
So, to like give you a crash course, you have the Conservatives, otherwise known as the Tories, and you have Labour. Now, the Conservatives are a centre-left party. Labour is a centre-left party. What's the difference? So, what's the difference, you might ask? There isn't one. Ostensibly, the Conservatives are the right-wing guys, but they're not the right-wing guys. We had 14 years straight of them. I don't know how they managed to pull that off, but we had like 14 years straight of them, successive Conservative government. And they basically just like forgot what they were supposed to be doing. And so like the reason that Labour won in the last election, and they won in a fairly handy landslide against the Tories, was because finally their entire voter base had sort of woken up to the fact that they were not voting for the party they thought they were voting for. A right-wing, low-tax, pro-growth party is meant to be a right-wing, low-tax, pro-growth party. It's not meant to be functionally identical to every other party that's like centre-left and just not doing anything. And I mean, that was one of the big like sticking points, was that taxes, personal taxes in the UK are the highest they've ever been, and that happened under them, which is like oxymoronic. So everyone kind of woke up to that fact. Everyone sort of realised that they were sort of being shafted, and then there were other parties that people voted for. We got reform out of it, which is led by a very opportunistic chap who basically just his career is basically just him recognizing like the sort of like one of the smaller thorns in people's sides, in this case like how do I describe it? He starts parties that capture a part of the conversation that clearly not enough people are talking about, but is never actually enough to really like win him anything significant. It's like, it's very targeted, it's very specific, and it's always very, very successful in a very limited sense. In this case, he started reform, and what reform was very successful at was capturing the old Tory voters, because they were like, Tories are not a pro-growth, low-tax party anymore, but we are like, what the Tories are meant to be. And there was like the subset of Tory voters who were disillusioned with the Tories for those reasons went and voted for them, which gave them a lot of success, but it was very limited success. That's basically it. But yeah, no, back to just like British politics. Yeah, British politics is just universally centre-left, school teacher, global homo retard politics. No one has any idea how to grow a country. No one ever talks about growing a country. And they seem to have a kind of PTSD reaction to the idea that the UK actually used to be cool and based once. Yeah. I think the Tories might die. I think they genuinely might die, because, like, it's kind of funny, also kind of sad. You watch the current Tory leader, talk in the parliamentary debates, in like Prime Minister's questions and stuff. It's very funny because she's an interesting lady in her own right, and she seems to be, very, like, she describes herself as like anti-woke and like anti-identity politics, and wants capitalism and progress and stuff like that. But it's just funny because she gets up in Parliament and she is talking to the Labour guy, and she's like, immigration is a serious problem in this country, and you guys are not doing enough of it. And all the other guy has to do, Keir Starmer, all he has to do is stand up and go, all this immigration happened under 14 years of Tory rule. You guys had all the time in the world to sort this out. This is your problem and it's your fault. And now we're going to do something about it. And you could literally say that about anything, which is why I think they might die, because they actually don't have a leg to stand on anymore. They can say whatever they want. They can be like, Labour, taxes are too high. You're not talking enough about lowering taxes. You know, the working family this and the working family that. And you just, all you have to say is like, you guys raise the taxes. Like, these are your taxes. You made them. And if you think this is a problem now, you had all the time in the world to fix it and you didn't. And you can literally say that about anything. Basically, Parliament just needs to be nuked from orbit, and the entire talent pool just needs to be like replaced with just something new that actually makes sense. Because they all, one of the really big standout problems is that UK politicians have, like, this isn't like a conspiracy theory. This is like an explicit thing. They optimize for how they look in front of the camera. Parliament. So, in short, Parliament is like a media institution now. You know, Dominic Cummings describes it as WWE is more real than the news, and WWE is more real than Parliament. And he's right, because nothing they do is real. In meetings, like in the meetings that the Prime Minister has, all of the topics that are going to come up in the meeting and all of the answers to all of those topics have already been typed out. And the people who attend the meeting are just given a folder which says everything. And they just read off the folder, you know, have some meaningless conversation amongst themselves about this, and then move on. The Prime Minister just like, he's a media guy. His job is just to, you know, not say the wrong thing in front of the headlines, even though they do all the time. They're not there. They don't optimize for good legislation. They don't optimize for good policy in running a country. They optimize for how they sound in front of the camera, what their fellow backbenchers say about them, and what the headlines say about them. That's it. They're not running a country, basically.
That is actually very similar to what's happening in Canada, I'd say. Because as you said, with the 14-year rule by the Tories, was it? Oh, momentarily break, folks. I think we're having some cam issues. Give us a moment.
Sorry, I'm like far away.
No, you're all good. You're all good. I had to refill my tea anyways, so that was perfect timing. We're back?
Yep.
Beautiful. But no, as I was saying, it's what you were mentioning there about was it the Tories that you said that were in power for the 14 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, very similar thing, at least for the last like 10 years here in Canada, where the Liberal Party has held power for the longest time, and that now all the opposition has to do is simply point out all the failings of, you know, the last 9 years. It's a very easy job. You know, and rightfully so, as they should be pointing out. That's their whole job as the opposition. But now it's gone to the point where the Liberals are, like, as an attack vector, they're saying, oh, well, 9 years ago, before we came into power, the Conservatives were fucking shit up, you know, and we just came in to clean their mess. And it's like, okay, well, that's nice and all, but you guys have been around for 9-10 years. Like, what's going on? Like, you guys are only making it worse. And
yeah,
same thing in Parliament. Watching the questioning period, just the way that they talk amongst one another and the way that they just orate and, you know, make all these quick quips, like, same thing. It seems like it's an extension of the media. It seems like they're just there to get sound bites. They're just trying to get the best dig, the best slogan, the best whatever. And it doesn't seem all that great. Because even though I have faith for conservatives coming into power, I'm not holding my breath, because a lot of the things that even they talk about, they don't go far enough in it. Like, nobody's talking about active deportation enough. They're not talking about the fact that Canada is run on a monopoly system, essentially. Like, we have 2 or 3 companies that make up the entirety of our telecom infrastructure, and we're paying rates that are, I think, the highest in the world for bandwidth for a nation that is neighbors to America, where, like, you have companies like Starlink popping up, and meanwhile I don't understand why I'm paying like $50-$60 for a cell phone plan when it's so much cheaper elsewhere. Like, what, do we lack the infrastructure? Do we lack the capabilities? I find that hard to believe.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things, just like what you cited, the problems in the UK. It's just a lot of things that are just being ignored and left on the back burner, and slowly but surely the pendulum is swinging, but not really a lot of faith in the political process.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly will try and have like faith in it. So, like, I'm not like completely black-pilled them. I say nuke Parliament from orbit, but I say that from a place of love.
Yeah, of course.
And obviously, I mean, at the end of the day, this is just the normal functioning of just normal democracy. Like, we need to be able to clearly recognize the problems and the errors that we're making and be able to correct them. And obviously, you do that by handing over the keys of power to the people who are most clearly pointing out those errors, and with a sort of with the objective of correcting them. Whether or not they do that, obviously jury is always out. But it's kind of the best you can do, really. And it's kind of boring. I kind of had a bit of a. I definitely had one of those like contrarian phases where I was like, democracy itself just sucks. We need to just get rid of it and do some hyper convoluted technology enabled sci-fi thing where everything is correct and nothing is wrong. Basically, was more or less what I was saying. I think the thing is,
you ever see this clip? I don't mean to interrupt you, but you ever see this clip of this guru talking about how democracy is for the people, by the people, but the people are retarded?
Retarded, yeah.
Sorry,
classic, and certainly classic, and to an extent, certainly true. We're not the average of all humans is not like particularly smart and capable, and it's not someone like the average of all humans isn't the person that you would put like in cabinet, but that's obviously not really the point. Well, one thing I have thought is that you do want how do I put it? You do want your country to be run like a company if there is a very high potential for delta, like a very high potential for change. And so, like the sort of example of this maybe overused is obviously Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore. He was like, prime minister of a very British democratic institution, but he was obviously like the reigning, essentially autocratic prime minister for his entire life. And it's obviously a very dynastic like deal now. It's basically run by the family, but Singapore could not have gone from a backwater colonial fishing village to like the east, whatever region, Southeast Asian metropolis, like economic powerhouse that it is, with just a normal democratic system where they were constantly going back and forth between two guys who had two different ideas on how to run the country. Lee Kuan Yew, the guy, had one idea, in exactly the same way as like you run a company, you're like, I have this idea, we're going to land on Mars, and so we're going to do absolutely everything that I deem it reasonable to achieve that objective. And if you disagree with me, you can fuck off. And so it's like that completely works for a situation like Singapore, where it's like you're starting at zero. You have everything in front of you, and you just need like one guy to say, I know where we need to go, and I know how we're going to get there. I just need you guys not to like derail that for me. And it worked, and it was great. It was perfect. That being said, I think at that point, once you're up there, once you've achieved that status, and the sort of the landscape, like the potential for change is much diminished. You know, your potential energy is lower. At that point, that's when you need like stability. That's when you need to just like sit on your laurels, and you just need nice, stable, 3% GDP growth every year, bouncing back and forth to correct the errors that come along the way. But like as long as you're just stable and you're growing, great. Which is obviously like that's kind of that is just the nature of autocratic governance. Like you can sort of think about the Roman Empire and be like, man, why don't we just bin off Parliament and reinvest, state powers into the king, and just let him fucking do everything. Like he's gonna be cool and based, and he's gonna know what to do, and he just does, as long as he just hasn't got like idiots in his ear telling him what to do and derailing him, it'll be great.
Yeah, let's put Lord Miles in charge.
Yeah. And like, yeah, the thing about that is that like autocratic rule like that is obviously a double-edged sword, because if it's going well, it's going great, and if it's going badly, it's going fucking terrible. The Roman Empire the Roman Emperor will take you to civilization defining height in 1 year, and then he will just obliterate the entire realm in the next on a personal whim. So yeah, if you're like a backwards shithole country like the UK at present, not to backpill too much, it's not it's terrible, but it's not that bad. You need to know what you're doing, and you need to have no distractions. But when you have that success and you have that prosperity and you have your laurels to rest on, then you just need stability.
Yeah, it's kind of strange living in these times where we have amazing tools like the fact that we can just live stream a podcast, and you live across the pond and we can have this at 60 FPS, and we have smartphones, and trains relatively run on time, and all this great infrastructure and all that, but it just feels like we've kind of stagnated in that regard. Like we don't really see like huge bounds of progress in our respective nations in regards to, I don't know, any adaptation. I mean, like, Jesus Christ, we were just talking about schooling for the beginning of this podcast here, and the same problems that we were talking about, I guarantee you they still exist today. Like in regards to screening the teachers, or the way that students are treated with the finger wagging and all that shit. It just seems like we're not as quick to adapt as we should be, and this is becoming a big problem considering like how fast tech and the economy and the world and everything is just shifting. We're just not able to kind of keep up, and being at the whims of these people that are, they just want the pension. They've been in politics for all their life, whether as an MP or otherwise, and it's just for them it's just business as usual. There's no consequences to lying or to obfuscating or gumming up the works, or just meddling with the process. It's like there's not really, I think one of the main problems is like there's not really a feedback loop. Like we have elections and whatnot, sure, okay, fine, you can vote at the ballot box, and that will indicate to the party just how popular they are and whatnot with different polls, and sure, but like that's every like 4 years in America, right? If you live in a country with a parliament, well, good fucking luck. if they get a stranglehold on it, or if they have enough support, they can be in there, like you said, for 14 years. Here in Canada, I didn't think that Justin Trudeau, when I heard about the fact that he's been in power for 9 years, I was like, how the fuck is that even, like, what do you mean? Is 9 years? Are you kidding me? That's insane. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is an insane amount of time to be in power and to have absolutely run the country into the ground. Like, that is incredible. But the just going back to the idea of the feedback loop, I think like the kind of next iteration of what politics is evolving towards, I don't know if it'll somehow merge with blockchain or AI or what have you, but there has to be some kind of a revitalization where people have at least a little bit more input than they do now into the process, so that it's not just a matter of voting or responding to a poll or something, but something that's, I don't know, maybe not day to day, but just having like referendums, like that are, I don't know, just single questions. You know, what do you want to happen for your region based on this kind of issue? And sure, okay, like a lot of midwits are not going to know what's going on, and you know, people that are working in the 9 to 5, they don't have time. They're busy trying to raise kids. You know, they just read the headline and they move on with their day. That's fine. There's a good chunk of the population that lives like that. But if there's not like a constant feedback loop to kind of remind these people, like, hey, you fucking work for us, you know, then that kind of, it gets lost in the message, and they can just do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah, government needs more dashboards. Need more like real-time analytics to keep everyone updated. It's only true for the UK, where even up until the point of COVID, when this was more or less discovered, we didn't even have, like, Parliament didn't even have a file sharing system. Like,
What?
these guys were just, yeah, they were just like emailing or like DMing each other files, and there was no coordinated, like, they just weren't using like shared documents or like Microsoft Teams or any of this stuff. Like, just weren't using it.
Even
everything
like
was just completely...
even just up to COVID.
Well, this was like basically when it was discovered that there was no file sharing system, was when code was kicking off, and you know, there were people. Do you know Dominic Cummings?
Dominic Cummings. That rings a bell. Let me look him up.
You should, a little look-see. But
okay, so he was a chief strategist for Boris. Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, essentially he was very central to our COVID response, and unfortunately, a lot of that effort was just basically discovering how technologically inept government here is, and just basically fixing it. Discovering that we did not have like any comprehensive file sharing infra, and deciding, hey guys, we should be like, you know, shared documents and stuff instead of just sending these things around on unsecured channels all the time. Yeah, more dashboards in government.
I'm all for it. I'm of the mind now, and my background in history and politics is not as strong as it should be, but I'm of the mind now that like I'm all for pushing some kind of open sourced AI integration into government, whether it's basic like just statistics analysis, or even just like looking like day-to-day impacts of certain policies, like what have you. I am all for that, as long as it's open source and we can actually see like the work being done, so that it's not just, you know, trust us, we pick the right LLM to guide us through this decision making process, but just make it as transparent as possible. Because as far as I'm concerned, like, they had their chance, like the MPs had their chance, the party leaders had their chance. Now I feel like we should start introducing something else and give it more reign. Not necessarily like plug it into our hydro system or anything like that, but I mean, basic policy. Like I find it hard to believe that there isn't a system out there, or like the possibility of creating a system where, based on certain thresholds, whether it's like, oh, based on the immigration statistics of the year before, of these types of people entering the labor market, we have to adjust what kind of groups we're letting in, maybe select for a different type of visa and what have you. But it just seems like a very more manual process these days. And even a lot of those things, like, we don't have a say over. Like here in Canada, they want to bring over a lot of people that are coming in from the war in Gaza and Israel. And okay, sure, there's a humanitarian argument to be made there, of no doubt. Okay, fine. But like, number one, how do you even track all those people as soon as they're in here, especially if a lot of the infrastructure that's based on, you know, their documentation where they're from is essentially evaporated or been bombed to all hell? And then two, how does that mix with the Jewish diaspora that's already here? Because if I got introduced to a land where my neighbors, you know, have ancestral roots to the country that bombed me into oblivion, I wouldn't feel too good about that. I wouldn't feel too happy to live beside these people. And what are they gonna do about that? Well, nothing, because last I checked, they're still looking to import, you know, these people here. With what? Like, with what oversight? It just seems like it's kind of on autopilot. We don't really have a choice. They're just like, well, today we're gonna give a couple $100 million to Ukraine. Today they're actually, the funny thing is, the latest meme about Ukraine and Canada, they are confiscating more guns. Like, they added some more guns to the list of the ones that they're looking to confiscate from Canadians, based on this new law that passed. They're trying to take those guns and send it to Ukraine.
Oh yeah, I think I did see that.
So the government's gonna take your guns, or at least, like, they allow you to volunteer them. I don't think they're actually, like, forcibly breaking into any homes. And they're gonna send it overseas. Like, that's great. That's just nice.
Yeah. Classic, really. I mean,
But
yeah, when you think about it makes perfect sense, but
yeah, but having more feedback loops, I'm all for it, because there's a lot of very strange things. I don't know how privy you are to Canadian politics, but in the last couple of years, we've had what I would argue are, like, nation-shattering scandals. Like, the biggest one was foreign interference. We had an election during COVID, and it turns out that due to some leaks, they found out that China and India were actually, like, essentially infiltrating the political process here in Canada, where there was one MP in my city, actually, who, for his riding, they bust in Chinese nationals, and the government, because all they have to do is say, look, we know where your grandparents live back in the mainland, so you better do as we say. They bust them into the riding, and they forced them to vote for the Liberal Party. And those MPs that are involved in that are either knowingly or unknowingly were involved in that foreign interference, they're still sitting in Parliament. They haven't released the names, and they're not going to. They literally said, like, at the beginning of the hearings on this whole issue, they were like, we are not going to release the names. I don't know what they're doing in terms of, like, jail sentences or crimes, because last I checked, we used to hang people for that. But we just have a handful of MPs just sitting in Parliament right now, collecting government checks and literally fraternizing with the enemy.
you catch the Boundless Discovery article about this?
No, what? Sorry.
Yeah. What chat do I like communicate in?
Either Discord or X. I'll see it in either, whatever's easier.
I'll stick in the X one so that people can see it.
Sure.
The like, you know, Jason Baseman's thing.
Today, what, he made a post today?
No, not today. This is the Canadian battleground of foreign interference.
Oh, Boundless Discovery. Yes.
Yes.
I'm familiar with his outlet. Yeah.
Good shit.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lack of accountability, and just wrong hands with these things. I will say one thing to UK politics credit is that we do have a reasonably strong antibody to corruption for the most part.
What kind of corruption?
You know, like it's usually it's quite funny. It's basically just like donations. Now, obviously, donations like there's a very short, steep, slippery slope from like physical donations and just like straight up bribery. But the thing is, like, in the UK, you see it a lot with UK, with Labour groups here. So like Labour in Wales, Scottish people, not Scottish people in general. Whenever they find out that like one of their guys took campaign donations, they just like straight away eject them. The First Minister, like one of the new First Ministers of Wales, he'd like just been voted in, token black guy, and then they found out that he'd taken like £200,000 in donations, and the scandal was just immediate, and he just immediately had to like step down.
Is it like just donations from like foreign entities, or like
just like
private sector,
just donations in general, which definitely stands out to me. Sometimes I like sometimes I've seen some of these scandals where it's like such and such politician who's discovered that she took a £10,000 donation 5 years ago or something, and then the party just like rips them apart and ejects them. And sometimes I see headlines like that, and I'm like, okay, whoa, maybe we like didn't need to. Maybe that like wasn't that bad. But they do it anyway, and of course, if you when you just extrapolate out of it, like it does prove to be somewhat handy in disincentivizing people from being corrupt if it's so easy for them, and the threshold is so low for them to be slightly scandalous in that sense, and then just immediately be like ejected from the party or from like a leadership position.
Interesting. That's very interesting how you guys kind of have a hair trigger reaction to that, because we've had certain like scandals like that here and there. Like during the foreign interference investigations, it was found that our current Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he has like a charitable foundation called the Trudeau Foundation, which I don't exactly know what they actually do as a charity, but they were found to have received, I think it was like $1 million or something from an affiliate that was close to the Chinese Communist Party. And this was a donation that was given like years ago. So like it was already on the record. Like all it took was someone to actually put the pieces together and to find out where exactly this money had come from. But the moment that like things started ramping up with the foreign interference story and this came out, the Trudeau Foundation like gave the money back, they disavowed them, and so on and so forth. But I don't recall anybody that actually lost their jobs over it. I don't think a single person has been fired or has lost their position in government as a result of these scandals, as far as I know. So that's interesting that you guys have like such a low threshold for that kind of thing when it comes to just straight up blasting people out of the political space, because we certainly don't have that here. I mean, there's stories here and there of like, oh, such and such donated to their campaign, or they have ties to this, but it's like water off a duck's back.
Yeah, but then like that that culture certainly doesn't extend to other cultures. Quite funny. The borough that I spend a lot of time in London, called Tower Hamlets, very poor East London borough that kind of sucks really, but kind of funny because the people who run it, the Tower Hamlets Council, they're basically, you should it's very amusing if you go on Perplexity and you just type in Tower Hamlets councillor list, I think.
I'm gonna butcher the spelling.
Tower, and then like Shakespeare, Hamlet, like Hamlet's plural, or Hamlet people. It's just funny because the guy who's like running that at the moment, what's his name? I can't remember. But he's like him and all his mates are all just like Bangladeshi / Pakistani or whatever, and they're just really corrupt. The guy himself, who I'm pretty sure is currently running, is currently the mayor, had already like lost the job because of a corruption scandal, but then somehow got it back again, and then now like there's been this initiative from Parliament. What the hell are you typing?
I can't spell that. Wait, Tower Hamlets, like like the word tower.
Yeah. Tower and then space, like Shakespeare Hamlet, like Hamlets, but like several of them.
Okay, gotcha.
There's been like some initiative from Parliament where they've sent some councillors down to like sit in on him and like his fellow councillors and just kind of just watch what they do in the day to day to make sure they're not like being bribed and stuff.
Wait, what? Like he is like a babysitter?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about it. I just know on the surface level they've like sent some people from Parliament and their job is to just basically like basically kind of just kind of watch their back, like just be in the room for things to sort of cross-verify that like they're not being corrupt and stuff. It's kind of funny.
Sorry, Cat's asking for attention. I gotta have him on the stream. That's interesting. So he like actually has like a like an honest to god babysitter. Wow, that's I can't say I've ever heard of something like that, even here.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, especially on the timeline lately, like I've seen Yassine get really blackpilled on Canadian politics. And shit, if I was in his position too, like with Dingboard and then also working for X overseas, I probably would be too with the amount of taxes that he's paying there. But the one thing that gives me hope, even with all this, I don't know, just political, not instability, but this just kind of laissez-faire monotony of it all, is how in the US they're just completely looking to clear house with the Doge department or whatever the fuck they're calling it. That gives me a lot of hope, because I think that if that experiment works down there, then I think a lot of, or at least there's a chance, if it is successful, that a lot of people around the world are going to be like, okay, well, hold on. They fucking did it. Why can't we? You know, I bet there's some things that we can clear up and get in our government. I bet there's some things that we can change here. Like, I bet there's some things that we could make more efficient. Why the fuck not? If they did it, why can't we?
Yeah. Yeah, that does infuriate me when some other country or whatever sort of goes after something that seems a little bit common sense or whatever, and it's successful, and no one else ever replicates it. I used to get really angry about Britain not sort of trying to copy ostensibly more successful education systems. With like Javier Milei, it's like if you're in a country, such as the UK, that is sort of slowly dying, and you see a character come in sort of on a very similar premise and just do things and take a route that you might not necessarily agree with, but it works, and you have to like seriously consider doing something similar. But of course, no one does, which is fine. It's understandable from like a geopolitical sense. Like you don't like as a if you're running a country, you don't want to be like, those guys are better than us and we need to be more like them, because that's kind of it's just not really it's kind of a self-own. But obviously, if it's objectively good and it works, then you just gotta think about it at least.
Well, it takes a person that's humble to like not only admit like, look, the direction we're headed in has not been working. We need to own up to that mistake and then move forward. That's not really conducive with the kind of personality it takes to run for office in the first place. to win a popularity contest. So like it's very difficult to find people like that, or have people in the system like come up through it and then take that kind of a stance. Because like you said, it's a bit of a self-own. Like, okay, well, yeah, we fucked up. We're not doing as good of a job, so we need to do better, and we can, we can take examples from elsewhere so we can learn.
Yeah.
But like at one point, does that just become absolutely necessary? Because at least, I don't know, growing up here, I spent the majority of my life in this country. Like I'm Russian through culture, but I didn't really spend enough time to know what it's like to live there. All I know is Canada, and just seeing the way that it's developed now, like this is not the country that I grew up in. It seems like it's abandoned a lot of its core ideals and principles, and we're kind of headed towards the shitter if we don't reverse course soon. That's basically what it feels like. Like during COVID, I wanted nothing but to escape to America. I was doing everything I could to see if I could secure a visa. I was even thinking like, man, as a last resort, I'll walk across the border. Because like, have you seen the Canadian-American border? You know what it looks like?
Is it literally just like a line in the dirt?
Brother, let me show you this. Let's see if I can find a land-based border that isn't anywhere near like a big town. Because out there, like when you get out into the woods, let me see, that's Winnipeg. Oh, perfect. Yeah. See if we got is there a street view there? There, that's Canada. That's Canada right there. That's America. That's it. So, you pack provisions, you go to fucking Mountain Equipment Co-op or any of these like camping, stores. You buy all your things. Make sure to cross in the summer, not the winter, obviously. You don't want to freeze to death. And that's it. And who's gonna stop you? Like what? Like there's not even a river. It's barely a border. Like there's literally nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm right there with you, man. In regards to just kind of, I don't know, having a little bit of shame of where our respective nations are right now. Because yeah, like I said, I was doing everything I could to see if I could escape. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen for a while now. But one way or another, the pendulum is going to swing. The trucker convoy was the first sign of that here in Canada. I don't know if you guys have seen similar signs like that in the UK, in regards to like people coming out. Because the only guy that I could really think of is is it Tommy Robinson, the guy that just got locked up like a month ago or something?
Yeah.
Like he seemed like the only kind of I don't know, like reactionary force to what's been going on in the UK. I mean that event, I think, was it were you posting about that on X? The kind of like the EAC kind of UK I don't know, party or group that they're trying to build this initiative of people.
Yeah,
Was it
LFG.
you that went there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I've seen little things like that. Can you what can you tell me about that? And how did that go? How was the evening?
Very good. It was very exciting, very arousing, very motivating. All the other different buzzwords I can think of. There are definitely better voices and more palatable forces coming together to reject British decline. Case in point. The two guys involved, I know, Joe and Lawrence, both great chaps in their own right. Joe has thus far been, in principle, an events organizer, but being very, very effective and very good at collecting together like techno-optimists and stuff in London. Trying his level best to kind of solve the coordination problem that exists in London and or like Britain in general, which is that obviously in San Francisco, everybody knows everybody, right? cultural, social capital is leveraged, 1000x in San Francisco. If you know the right guy, you're 1 degree of separation away from or no degrees of separation from like a billionaire, or from Elon Musk and stuff. Everyone knows everyone. You can pull on all kinds of strings to get things done. Everything's always happening. Stuff is always happening. There's always a particle for something. We don't have that here in London. Things are a lot more insular. People are just sort of in their own little in groups, and no one ever really speaks to each other and stuff like that. But Joe has been very good at trying to solve that coordination problem of trying to get all of these people together in the same room constantly, regularly, such that everyone becomes familiar with each other, and that network begins to form. Lawrence, brilliant campaigner. He's by profession he's a law guy. He spearheaded a campaign that got this particular breed of dogs banned in the UK.
Pit bulls? Nice you guys got pit bulls banned?
Bully XL, pit bulls, like the super soldier pit bulls, yeah.
Oh, nice! Congratulations, that's awesome.
And which was him and his guy and his team. Like he was just very, very good at that. And so now he's also doing this crush crime campaign, which is basically just identifying the 80-20 principle very much applies to crime, especially in London, where it's we have a phone thieving epidemic where gangs are just riding around on electric power, bicycles, and they just steal your phone at hand. But what him and his team have figured out and are trying to push on is the fact that if you arrest in a particular area, if you arrest 5 guys, crime in that area, such as phone snatching, can drop by 90%. And so clearly, the deficiency is just that we are just not arresting career criminals, and we're not putting them away for long enough. Because some of these guys, can have hundreds of offenses logged, and the last time they were in prison, they were in jail for 6 months. And these 2 guys have basically come together to form this movement. It's certainly not a think tank, not really a lobbying group.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to really articulate what exactly it is. But for this event, we had Dominic Cummings there and a couple other interesting people. And he spoke, and others spoke, and it was essentially, those talks were essentially just illuminations of British state dysfunction from the inside. The room was packed. It was just stupidly, we were literally just sardines packed into this venue that had already been upgraded to a larger venue.
Looks like it, yeah.
Because of all the demand. I say it was rousing because by the end of it, it was basically just everyone in this room has just been the rhetoric was just simply we're dying slowly. We're slowly dying for extremely retarded reasons, but we very much can fix those things. The very nice, unique, interesting thing about these guys is that, Lawrence opened up the talks and he was like, we're in this ridiculous situation, criminals everywhere, decline everywhere, negative 0.1% growth. Instead of just kind of yapping about it and just not really getting anything done, we've made a bill. And he spent lots of money getting an actual parliamentary bill written, which could theoretically just be deployed to Parliament whenever, and they could debate it now. And that bill, very funny. It essentially repeals the Town and Country Planning Act, which is the conglomeration of rules and regulations that stop the UK from being able to build things. It's very infamous. It's very frustrating. It's very annoying. But this bill pays particular attention to 3 things: overhead transmission cables, nuclear power plants, and AI data centers. We have a deficiency of energy. We need to build it out, but we also have a deficiency of energy infrastructure. We need cables. Where I come from in the UK, this is actually very amusing. You can drive around certain parts and you'll see signs put out on the sides of the roads that in all red say no pylons. No pylons. there's a whole subset of people, rural people, who are like, I don't want overhead transmission cables. They cannot be built because they're ugly and they ruin the scenery and stuff. It's like, okay, well, we have one of, if not the highest energy price in Europe. You obviously want more energy. You want more wind turbines and things to that effect, but you don't want the infrastructure that fucking delivers it to your house. Like, make up your mind. And the other two, like nuclear power, we need energy independence. And AI data centers, we have the means by which we could be a global leader. Don't let me say global leader. That's fucking retarded.
That's a WF word right there.
That's yeah. Fucking Jesus.
Global leaders.
We have the means. Yeah. Fucking. Okay. Fuck that. We need to build data centers and nuclear power plants and actually get back on top. That's a nice thing. You don't really get that much in these movements and things. You don't get an entire actual parliamentary bill written, ready to go. That's this is the problem and we're going to destroy it. The point of Let's Fucking Go of LFG, of looking for growth, you might as well call it Let's Fucking Go, because that is basically what it's getting at. It's just basically identify the things that are getting in the way of growth in the country. Fortunately, this is not too complicated, because it is kind of obvious the things that are getting in the way. We are drowning in regulations. We just physically cannot build things. Hence, targeting the Town and Country Planning Act straight away. So find those things and get rid of them. There are other things. There's more to come that I'm either not familiar with or I can't say.
That's strange. That's strange that you mentioned the overhead power lines. They can't. There's no way for them to just put them below ground. That's an issue here we have in Canada with the weather, because just how harsh our winters can be. So there's a lot of work that is looking to be done in terms of putting these underground. But is that not possible in the UK? Is there something different with the soil there? I wouldn't imagine there would be that much of a difficulty. If it's an issue that they're overhead and they're you don't want them to fuck up the scenery, you can't just put them underground?
Presumably you can. But my mind goes back to our high-speed rail program, which failed miserably, HS2. It failed because it went the way of a great many other government projects where there was an initial plan, but every time they tried to build a stretch of it, they were running into local planning laws, and they had to consult people, and people were like, we don't want to see the tunnel, can you put the tunnel underground? So they're like, okay, we'll put the tunnel underground. But when you build a tunnel underground, you start running into bat populations, and because of local planning laws, it's well, we can't put a tunnel through a bat region, so we're going to have to figure that out. And so hence, the costs for HS2 ballooned into 200 billion pounds or whatever. There's actually a very amusing thread that a chap in London put together, and all he did was look at the public account, accounting for HS2, where they basically tabulated what money was being spent where, so on and so forth. And
oh my fucking god, you weren't kidding. 27 billion. Holy shit, dude. That's almost as bad as California's high-speed rail.
And so much of that was literally just because people were like, we don't want to see these tunnels, can you build them underground? So they're like, okay, we'll build them underground. And then it was just running into all the problems that are inherent in building underground. And everything just kind of got out of hand.
Wow.
Does it can't even exist anymore? But the accounting for this thing was very funny, because obviously, the construction costs themselves were expensive enough. But there was money genuinely going into a black hole. We were spending. There was £100 million being spent on, as it was referred to in the cost breakdown, time-related costs. It's what do you mean? There's a whole. How is there a sinkhole of cash going into time-related costs, quote unquote, when everything in this cost breakdown is a time-related cost? It's all. There's time being spent on it, and it costs money, and so there's accounting where it's the money that we're spending is being logged as money that's being spent, like in a very circular, just ridiculous fashion. It was just, yeah, it's just insane.
Wow.
If I can find it, if I can.
That is insane. That reminds me of there's a construction project kind of similar to this in the States. I think it was the 70s. I think it was. Let me see if I can find it. I think it was called The Pit.
That's name.
Where they were trying to. Oh, sorry, it was called The Big Dig. Yeah, so this was a mega project in Boston that was supposed to reroute the interstate highway through some kind of a tunnel. And as far as I know, this project never got actually completed. And it was the single most expensive highway project in the US. And so, like, we're not even talking about connecting cities to different railway systems. We're just talking about this, like, essentially just shifting where a road goes through. And they spent, it looks like it says here, $20 billion total in 1982 dollars. Which,
oh, yeah.
I mean, that it beggars the imagination, but to me this just reeks of like mob ties, like corruption, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. So is the HS2 project just completely stalled then for you guys? Are they still trying to work on it, or like what's going on with that?
Yeah, it's basically dead. There are chunks of it that have been built, and so there's talk of kind of taking those chunks and then routing them to like some. Like the original HS2 plan was, some like whole cross-country thing, and now it's like, okay, what if we just take the parts that kind of have been half built and then just build a line from like whatever it is, like London to Manchester, and that's it. So very much downgraded, but yeah.
So I guess this right here was like the original plan. And it looks like that in the previous chart it showed that as of right now this is what it remains.
Yeah.
Wow. Incredible. 20 billion just down the drain.
Yeah, it was just completely gone. Jesus.
Wow. Well, I mean, look, just based off that alone, it doesn't surprise me that that Lawrence here has been able to amass such an audience with his various campaigns.
Yeah.
Do you know what the status is of the bill as it is right now? Do you know if it's like getting pushed by any MPs, if it's gotten any attention in the political sphere?
No, it's still very much like this is very much a recent development. The idea is that you could like pay LFG like £3, and that would finance getting a copy of it printed and mailed to the door of like your local MP. And obviously the idea with that is just basically pester them into reading it and then hopefully considering it and then hopefully debating it. Petitions only go so far,
Yeah, I'm well aware. We actually had one like that here in Canada, I think about maybe 6 months ago or so, where just like in the UK, we can only really trigger an election unless we want to wait for the term to expire. We can trigger the election with a no confidence vote, but because of the way that our government is set up right now, just about every party is unofficially backing the Liberals. So the only way to get them out of power is some kind of a no confidence vote motion that goes through the public. So this MP created this petition signed by I think a couple 100,000 Canadians. I think it was among the first petitions of its kind, because like we've never really had like a direct vote by the people to trigger an election, at least not that I'm aware of in recent history. The bill was like, it was read, it made it to Parliament, because we have like in the rules saying that like if this petition gets enough signatures, then it'll actually move on into the political process. But naturally it got dead stalled, and the response from the government was because they actually have to respond, like, as even if they deny it. And
Yeah.
just reading that text, like, oh, like we're doing everything we can. We still think that this would be an awful time for an election. The people need stability, so on and so forth. All this fucking PR bullshit.
Yeah.
And yeah, the petition only got us so far. So I don't know what it's gonna take to get some change in here. I would like it if we had an election before next October, which is when we're supposed to have it, but I don't see that happening anytime soon, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's a shame.
But on a not to blackpill too much, the reason that I brought up this this talk that you guys have with the LFG, we have something like similar happening to that extent here in Canada. It's not really aligned with like politics or trying to drum up any change through that kind of a system. It's more to do so with like the EAC movement, AI development, business development, that kind of thing. It's kind of like a loose grouping of individuals, at least here in Toronto. I know there's in British Columbia, there's a collective as well. It's essentially just a group of people that are working in, whether it's the tech sector or public service. Everyone from all kind of backgrounds gathers in these spaces. But the whole point is just to look at what kind of problems are people dealing with today and how can we use technology to alleviate them. So it's still like, it's not as politically involved as the LFG stuff you guys got going on there in the UK, but there are little pockets of people here and there, decentralized, like getting together like once a week, you know, whether it's to have like these discussions or to talk about how we can better use LLMs to solve these problems or what have you. Just kind of trying to leverage the tools that we have now to kind of come up with these creative solutions. Like there was one guy that took it upon himself to create this. I wonder if I still have it in my bookmarks here. So this guy, he made what's called an LMIA map. The LMIA is the system by which new immigrants to Canada can find work in certain sectors. So there's this program where employers like Walmart or, you know, grocery chains, what have you, just about any private business, that if they don't have any responses to a job posting from the local population, they can sponsor a migrant or a recent immigrant to work for them, and the government will subsidize their wage. So the employer has to pay like maybe half of it or something, and the government pays the other half. And so this program has been around for a very, very long time, but it's only in the last couple of years that people have started to realize, like, hey, there's a lot of kids that are just not able to find work because a lot of immigrants are taking up their positions, which is absolutely true, especially when you look at this map that just has like a color-coded breakdown of all the various businesses that have applied for this program. And some people have made the argument that, okay, well, you know, kids don't want to work, or like there just isn't that much of a demand to do these kind of jobs, you know, working for minimum wage and all that. But that's just outright not true. It's actually the opposite problem, that there's not enough jobs for these people to work. So that's why the youth unemployment rate, at least in Ontario, is so high. Like I have a friend who he's done a couple of odd jobs in the last couple of years. He worked like an Amazon warehouse. He works at a graveyard now. He worked at like a stocking plant for doing like food delivery, like all the prepared like frozen stuff that goes all the restaurants. And just about every job that he's worked, he's told me like it's taken months for him to find a position. And he's qualified, like he has his high school diploma and plenty of years of experience and everything. But the moment that he gets into the job, he sees all these different migrants who have their wages subsidized, and he's like, oh, okay, well, I get it. That's why it's so hard for me to find a job. They'd rather hire those people because it's cheaper. So yeah, just a little example of like how someone just took it upon themselves to just build this tool, which, you know, I feel like the government should probably provide for the people, but I guess it's not important for them.
Yeah, more dashboards in government. I've definitely come around to well, politics in general, I mean, is still very much an incontrovertible truth that politics is boring and soul-sucking, and that is very much why tech people broadly don't pay any attention. They're certainly not wrong to. For them, like one of my biggest takeaways. I've been to SF once, and I think one of my biggest takeaways from my trip there was that discrepancy between, or the contrast between the founders and builders and stuff, and the way that it is run. You have probably one of the most talent dense places on the face of the earth.
Easily.
Everybody goes there to solve problems and be successful. And yet the place is run by retard communists. How does that happen? How does that happen? And it obviously makes sense because, those same people do not identify politics with, for them, politics is not synonymous with problem solving. It's not synonymous with getting things done. It's synonymous with, corruption, vapid, fake human nature, something that is just fundamentally detached from human nature in and of itself, which I think which again is to an extent it is certainly true. But alas, at the end of the day, we do still wake up in a world that is at the behest of that very same politics. You can build your B2B SaaS, but your B2B SaaS still obeys the laws and regulations of politics that you so despise. And so it's you can visit your mate in a lab who's building next generation 3D printers and talking about the 1,000-year American Empire, but you still have to walk out of that lab and get robbed by a 15-year-old Honduran drug dealer who literally just turned up in SF from Honduras fucking yesterday. And that is because of failing of politics. And so obviously Elon has certainly been spearheading this cultural shift where there is now that overlap between the tech founder and whatever and politics. It very much seemed like Elon begrudgingly came to the conclusion that he basically had no choice but to involve himself in politics and obviously make of himself a bit of a kingmaker, because SpaceX was as successful as it was still at the behest of the FAA and California governing bodies that politically were maligned against it and were physically stopping it from, obviously in the case of they put in a request to increase the number of total Falcon 9 launches in a year, which was upheld by declined by the California Coastal Commission, and they cited his political tweets as part of that decision. So at the end of the day, you do have to play that ball, and I've very much come around on that. I think Elon has very much made the right decision in involving himself in politics, and I think it's something that should be more broadly considered among people, among your conceal among your prototypical SF tech bro and stuff like that, and startup founders and stuff. I think Augustus Director is very good at this. He's very much made a point of doing the politics, doing the rounds on politics and ingraining himself very much in local government and stuff like that. It is a necessary evil, and I think we should be doing a lot more. And of course, for some people, it just ends up that you just don't have a choice. I don't know. I mean, Elon probably felt like that to some extent, but situations such as in the UK where you have everybody kind of moving away from just the sort of techno-optimist kind of event thing, and people are moving away and being like, we actually need to just go straight to government and just be like, here's a fucking bill that we've written. Think about it, instead of just kind of constantly skirting on it, because that's sort of how I felt. And I remember there were a lot of conversations in like the early. I don't even know if I have the right to refer to the early days of EAC. I joined a few months after his thing.
Nobody does. Nobody rules EAC. It's there's no hierarchy.
No. I'm just saying I don't know if I'm considered like an old head in that sense. But what I mean to say is that like I just remember there were conversations ages ago where people were talking about like spinning out a like pro crypto lobbying group in Washington, because there was kind of like the concern that, certainly a very real concern that EAs had captured a lot of institutions and were making their way into government and sort of had a very physical presence in government and policy making and things. And so there was that conversation where it was like, EAC is all haha fun and games, but also there are like a lot of these regulations that probably shouldn't exist, and kind of joking about it on the timeline can only go so far. We should perhaps do something more physical. No, nothing really like manifested from that, but it was the right spirit, and I think it is what is happening more nowadays, and I think it should happen more.
Yeah, it's in regards to Elon Musk and how he's kind of forced himself into that. I remember I don't know if it was an article that I read or what, but it spoke to his mindset and how he goes about problem solving, because his whole thing, from my understanding, in the last month of the election, because Pennsylvania was such a battleground state, I think pretty sure it was Pennsylvania, because he saw it as the main attack vector for the Trump campaign in order to win. Like, securing Pennsylvania would essentially mean that that's it. Like, they would essentially win or have much better chance of winning the office. He stationed himself there for the entirety of it, and like actually like lived in the state, like around the campaign and all that, and did everything that he could to propel this further. So like showing up to all these campaign speeches, like just kind of ratcheting up that lottery that they had, giving out $1 million to certain individuals that were saying that they would vote for Trump, which I don't know what the legality of that is, but to be honest, didn't bother me none. Fuck it. Like, the other side has the entirety of the corporate media complex on their side. We can play that game too, all right? Except, we're going to give out millions of dollars to people, which I don't know. I don't really have any issues with that, to be honest. Especially with how close the race got. But yeah, it is that kind of dichotomy split, how you can, like, you could live in SF and you could say all this EAC shit and you could talk about accelerating and LARP and all that, but you're going to walk outside and you're going to step into human shit. Or you're going to step into shit and you're not going to be certain that it is not dog shit. Which, I was actually in SF also a couple months back in, when was it? I think it was I think it was springtime that I went. Yeah, it wasn't during the summer. But in any case, when I went there, I was living in, I don't know which part you were at, but let me see if I can find it. I was like bordering on the Tenderloin.
Yeah, I was off Market Street as well.
Yeah, I was in this region here, like in Union Square, in one of the hotels.
Oh yeah.
Which that was very jarring, because I came at the time when Waymo was like literally that weekend was releasing their cars out into the streets of SF, and we were there to see it play out, and it was fucking wild to just see a Waymo car pass by the whole street's worth of junkies and people doing the Fent dance, and just I don't know, I I don't have the words to describe how I feel about that, because that is just, it's jarring to say the least to see that amount of, I don't know, just absolute debauchery. The first morning that we were there, we were gonna go to the to Alcatraz, so we were on the way to the ferry. Dude, it's like 7 a.m. We walk by a corner store. This dude runs out with a bottle of water, saying, like, yelling at the store owner that water's a human right and he can steal it all he wants. And there's like a security guard like 6 feet away, and he's like, I'm not fucking doing shit. Fuck that, man. I'm not doing it. Or like buying basic necessities. They were like under lock and key, like duct tape. You couldn't get duct tape unless you were asking for help. Oh yeah, I remember I had to get cough lozenges. I had a sore throat for a couple of days. I go to the lady, and she's like, oh yeah, you're gonna need my help with that. I need to open it up. And I'm like, fuck right off. No way. And we go over it, and would you know it, it was in a lockbox, just some basic Ricola, and I was like, "Wow, this is weird. I'm from Canada. We don't have this here. That's very strange." And she's like, "Yeah, it must be nice."
Peculiar.
Yeah. It's I don't know, man. I see similar stuff here in Toronto. To be quite honest with you, like they're just where I live in Toronto. Let me see if I can. I'm not gonna dox myself, obviously, but I live in this region here, which is Bloor Street is like the it essentially cuts downtown and uptown into two, and so the closer that you get to that street, the more kind of vagrancy you're gonna get. But it's also weird because on this street you have like there's a Gucci store, Louis Vuitton store, Ferrari dealership, Maserati, like all the richest, like, you know, places that you could be in regards to that. And then just up a block from me, if I'm going to get a coffee or something, I got to step over a junkie that was like ODing or about to OD. It's I don't know. It's disappointing to say the least to see the way that some of these places have been run, especially when you have to live in this kind of an area. Like I'd imagine that certain parts of London are like that too.
Yeah, certainly not as bad. We have, we have our fair share of like, you get some like tent camps, on the rare occasion, you know, groups of junkies in tunnels and shit like that. It's just not quite as bad. But there are more homeless people nowadays, just in general. A lot of them are just like running a scam. Basically, they're just like not real homeless people. Yeah, it's not good, and there's more crime. It's just, yeah, in general, there's more crime, there's more homelessness. There's just kind of generally increased misery. Not very nice. The mayor, Sadiq Khan, got voted in for a third term, which is a complete fluke. I personally put it down to demographic change in London because no one I ever spoke to liked the guy, and he somehow won a third term, and I just think that was basically.
Is that, I forget his name. Oh, Sadiq Khan. Yeah.
Yeah. It's getting knighted as well, which is very amusing.
Wait, you guys don't have term limits like that? Like he can win a third term?
I don't really know what the deal is with things like the mayorship of London. I don't actually know what the limits are if there are any.
There's no term limits. Wow. That's very strange. Huh.
Kind of funny. In so you have like London, the city. Then you have what's known as the City of London.
I've heard, yeah. My Scottish friend has told me that you guys, like, it's like a whole financial thing. It's tied to like the economy somehow. That like they just have their own kind of like little district within London.
Yeah, it has a historical context. At some point during William the Conqueror's conquest of Britain, he had besieged London, and gaining London's submission was not going very well, and so the concessions that were made at the time was, I will, hey William, I'll take London in general, but you guys, you collection of guilds and businessmen and whatever, this, you get autonomous rights over this particular section, and it's been that way since then. It's funny because the City of London is a corporation, it's a company, and it's like the only well-run part of London. It's just very funny. It just looks better. It's cleaner. It has its own corporate police. As distinct from like it has police for itself, and then there's police that is for like the rest of London and stuff. And they are much more effective. Yeah, so it's an amusing interest.
That's interesting. I didn't know you guys would have your police force. That kind of reminds me of how like Disney, at least in Florida, I believe, they have their own like regional government. Like they kind of exist in that same way, which is kind of interesting. I actually that reminds me, is it what's that one street that you guys have there in London that's like famous for its tailored suits?
Regent Street.
It's it was the same street in that movie with the
fuck, I remember. And the gentleman thing.
Something gentleman. Yeah. Kingsman. Yeah. Trying to remember, because anyways, I'm gonna see if I can find the name. It turns out that street, that entire real estate, is actually owned by a trust in Norway. Like the government owns it. Like the real estate on it. Which, like, what the how what?
That's pretty cool. Sussy maybe, but cool.
I'm gonna see if I can find it. Savile Row. That's it. Yeah, because I made a joke about Jimmy Savile to him, I remember. Yeah, it's owned by the Norwegian Oil Fund.
Yeah, makes sense.
And it's owned by the government of Norway, which is wild. I didn't think that a nation could just like buy the real estate of a street, let alone one that is so prestigious and has so much history. Yeah, that's weird that you guys have that going on. Kind of reminds me of the how the Vatican is set up as its own little country.
Yeah. I like Norwegian socialists because they live in like their own fantasy land where, when you have the infinite money glitch, you can actually just do whatever you want. You can be like as socialist as you like. It's fine because you can just finance everything. So like, and you get Norwegians who are like, just have really high taxes and like democratic socialism, man. It works great for us. It's like, yeah, it's because you guys have like 85 grand, like $85,000 per person of oil being sold every year.
Yeah, not too familiar with it, to be honest. My geographical education, we mostly like focused on, it's obviously like Eurocentric here in Canada, and we learned stuff about North America for the most part. But can't say I know too much about like the Nordic countries or even like Southeast Asia or anything. Never really had that as like a focus in our education. So like whatever we do hear, like a headline or something, it's kind of all we get over here. I mean, even I'm surprised that we don't know more about regional politics in the UK, considering how much we've borrowed from you guys. But what's Iceland like? Do you remember much of it growing up? Still with us?
Yeah, like,
Yep.
oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Did your mic go off?
Hey. Yeah, my AirPods died. Just
Oh, okay. I was like, what? He must be really like intensely reading something.
I was bored. I checked out. Sick of it. What is Iceland like? Great question.
All I know from it is that little funny mayor that they had in Reykjavik.
A little funny mayor.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. He went viral for a little while, a couple of years back. He was kind of outlandish. He had these weird, all these weird little ideas.
Interesting. I'm not really too familiar with Icelandic politics in general.
Yeah, this guy, John Nahr. He used to be a comedian, I think.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was the mayor of Reykjavik from 2010 to 2014.
Vaguely familiar, yeah.
Yeah, free towels in all swimming pools, a polar bear in the zoo, drug-free parliament, at Disneyland. Yeah, he had all these like outlandish ideas here and there.
Yeah, it is definitely like a lot more quirky and yeah, just like quirky and lighthearted and stuff. At the same time, yeah, I don't know. To be honest, I don't actually know. I couldn't really politics in Iceland. Not really too familiar with. Everything's run
politics, like just life. Well, what's life like there?
Yeah, everything's run alright. Everything like we got out of we got out of 2008 fine, and we recovered very well. And things are just like living there, being there. Things are just kind of generally pleasant. You just go to the pools, which are very well funded.
Sauna's a big part of the culture.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, just like all the fucking municipal government spending just gets spent on like building really nice pools, which is great. I fucking love them. But yeah, I mean, like growing up there, it's boring. You know, you need like a lot of money to spend to like keep yourself entertained. Other than that, yeah, it's just like a scaled down version of like your typical Western country. Like it's kind of just got like one of everything. Yeah. As soon as you go out of Reykjavik, you're just like out in the sticks, basically. There's just like everything else is just like a very small town or a village or just like a settlement, you know.
What language do they speak there? I'm like I said, I'm completely ignorant to a lot of this stuff.
Swahili. Just Icelandic.
Swahili.
Icelandic and English. Everyone there learns English through like American TV shows and stuff.
Mm. I've heard it's very beautiful.
Very nice place. Or you gotta go at least once.
Is it okay? Growing up, I heard this. I don't know to what extent this is actually true.
That know exactly what you're gonna say.
The Iceland Greenland thing, is that actually true that like when the Vikings arrived that no?
Greenland, just because like the idea was they turned up in a barren wasteland and they wanted it to be more attractive to prospective settlers, so they called it Greenland. Kind of trick them into it. Iceland, the naming for that. I remember it just being like some explorer guy, you know, climbed up some mountain and just saw like glaciers and was like, this is just a land of ice, and called it Iceland. It has certainly always been, or at least at the time was, the slightly more attractive and useful settlement compared to Greenland. It's funny, we have a statue in the middle of the in front of the cathedral.
What?
There's a statue to a man, Leifur Eriksson, and it's kind of funny. There's a little dig written into the plaque into it where it's like, you know, this is Leif Eriksson, who sailed to North America and discovered it, you know, over like 600 years before Christopher Columbus. I sort of like claim to fame. Yeah.
I'm guessing that's it here, or
yeah, there he is.
Beauty. Hey, it's still up. Hasn't been torn down yet. That's great.
Yeah, we don't get that kind of shit over there for the most part. Anyway, I mean, it is. I mean, it is at the end of the day. It is a very westernized. Like, it is a Western place, and it is like, you know, all the kids there are like very tuned into global politics, and they all, you know, as I say, they'll learn their English from like American TV shows and American media and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean the scale of global homo politics is not nearly as bad in Iceland as other places. Obviously, you can kind of just put that down to like tiny population, like it is literally a population of 350,000. So getting laws maybe, but it really isn't as bad.
Yeah, 386,000. Wow. Only 180 non-binary. Oh, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's a good ratio.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Well, yeah, no, it's certainly from the architecture. Yeah, I see the Western influences here.
We get a lot of people who believe in elves. That's definitely a thing. My mum believes in the elves.
What?
Fucking yeah. The elves. Yeah, there's just like a sort of folklorish element to the culture whereby there are like elves in the rocks. Don't disturb the elves in the rocks.
Holy shit! It says 30%.
Yeah.
Like Christmas elves, or like?
No, like they're like ethereal elves. They live in the rocks. Don't kick the rocks. Don't build over them. Don't swear in your house, because the elves in your house plants are gonna die if you swear. Mum has sometimes said that to me. One of my cousins has actually had a run-in with the elves.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's full blown.
How did that go?
She says that like I can't quite remember like why or how this was. I think she was like approaching because there are like these mounds of like volcanic rock, and they sort of like my mum has sometimes referred to them as like the palaces. I think I remember like my cousin saying that I don't know, she was like near one or like approaching one, and then she just again I can't remember how or why this happened, but then all I remember is her saying that she just had like a full blown you know, transcendental experience where she was just like speaking face to face like with elves. And it was interesting, and they were very nice. That was it, really.
Wow. Huh. Yeah, as far as superstitions go, my mom has plenty of her own with with the Soviet culture and all that. I can't say I've ever heard of elves though. That's a new one. I didn't think there would be that high of a concentration in people that that kind of believe that. That's very interesting. Kind of, I don't know, kind of like pagan. Is that the right word for it? Paganistic?
I don't know. I don't really know if it is. I suppose. I mean, like technically, maybe by extension. I mean, given the fact that like all the sort of like pagan beliefs and stuff. Obviously, these things were never like religions in and of themselves. They were just like cultural beliefs. They were just kind of things that you tell your kids, and so on and so forth. They were just sort of dynamic, diffuse things that you just kind of generally held to be. That you just generally thought about. You know, we sort of broadly referred to the Huldefolk, i.e., just like the hidden people, sort of throughout the country. I suppose to a certain extent, it's kind of like an animistic thing where it's like there are spirits that sort of inhabit like everything. Like I mean literally like calling these mounds of like volcanic rock the sort of palaces of for where these elves like reside. That is essentially, I suppose, in another way of putting it, is just like it's an animistic belief to say that like these rocks are infused with like living spirit that you shouldn't be, you know, disturbing and stuff like that. So I suppose that is basically what it is. And so you kind of extrapolate that out to a lot of other things, like on the road out from Keflavik Airport. If you look on like the ridge, I think to the left side if you're leaving the airport, you'll see these little like statues. They're not really like, they're not carved statues. They're sort of just these like rock structures that have been, I presume, like set up. But they look from like at a distance, their silhouette is very like, it's very human-like. It looks like a sort of figure that's standing there, and that's like some kind of, you know, hidden folk type of thing. You sort of see them. I have no idea if you'll come across them on Street View. That's a good question, actually. Might be able to.
I'd love to see these. That's very interesting. I wouldn't have thought that this much kind of this level of myth making would still be alive and well in like developed nations. I figured like that kind of stuff just kind of died out with, well, the generation that came before the boomers and whatnot. I didn't think that it would still have such a strong hold on the culture.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know to what extent, like, you know, people like my generation think about it. I don't get the sense that they really do. I'm not really too sure. Yeah, I think like the youngest I'm familiar with is like my cousin's age in this case, which is like I mean, even that is like she's like 40s. Yeah, like late 40s. So yeah, I don't know to what extent these are still things that like people my age would think about, really.
Yeah, because I don't know of any like traditions in that regard, or kind of like superstitions that are local to Canada. It's more just so like it comes from the different like diasporas of cultures. Like the Southeast Asians have their own thing, the Eastern Europeans have their own kind of little beliefs, just pockets like here and there. I don't know of any that are native to Canada, unless you're getting into like stuff like the like that's actually related to like indigenous cultures and whatnot. Like they have their own series of superstitions regarding all that. But I don't know if any of that like really stand out in Canada. Like the ones that like my mom would cling to wouldn't be the right word, but just kind of I guess like still believe. It's very simple stuff. Like there's one where if you have guests over that you haven't seen in a while, that you should not clean up after them for at least 3 days. So that way you're not like, you don't want to make it seem as though like you're rushing them like to get out the door. So that what happens in reality is like as you go throughout your house, you notice like little messes like here and there. And it just kind of reminds you that, oh, the guest was here, you know, had a good time or whatever. Like you just have associated memories with that. It's just like little weird things like that, or like she'll leave money around the house, like little coins, and like the pantry or something near some stuff. I don't even know what the deal is with that. Or like if you go back to your house after forgotten something, you have to look in the mirror before you leave, which I don't know what purpose that serves, but like just little things here and there, but nothing like elves. That's that's a wild one. Can't say I've ever heard something like that.
Yeah. And then of course, I mean the Christmas tradition is great.
You guys have Krampus, right?
No, we have Krampus equivalent Grilla, or and her husband Leppalúði, and their kids, the 13 Jólasveinar or Yule lads. Basically, the Yule lads turn up every successive 12th night of Christmas, starting on the 12th up to the 24th, and they all just they're a fucking nuisance in their own unique, interesting ways. They just cause problems. They come to your house and they like slam your doors. They eat the yogurt out of your, like they lick the leftover yogurt out of your old bowls. Sniff your meat, like not even eat it, just sniff it. I already said slimy doors.
Sausage swiper, a window peeper. These are awesome.
Grilla is just like a demonic, well, not demonic. She's a troll who eats children. She'll pack up naughty kids into her potato sack, take them up to the mountains, then make soup out of them. They have a cat, the Jólakatturinn, who eats children that didn't get new clothes for Christmas.
If your parents didn't get you new clothes for Christmas, you would get eaten?
Yeah.
That's a new one. That is
the incentive structures are like top to bottom. Like as a child, you're incentivized not to misbehave because you'll get eaten by the troll, and as a parent, you're incentivized to get your children useful gifts. Otherwise, the cat will eat them.
Yeah, that's actually very well thought out. Wow. Also, love the pronunciation of all those words. You fucking... Oh, I mean, obviously you nail it, but that is... I can't say I've heard like too many people speak Icelandic in my lifetime, and that was fucking on point. That shit sounded crisp.
Thank you. Could certainly be better. Earlier when I was like saying... Fucking how Glimskid go? Very hard. Difficult word. Which is it?
Yeah, that's very interesting. In Russian culture, we have... well, again... It's referenced in John Wick, but I guess the closest thing that we have to that is Baba Yaga, which is so witch that lives in the forest on a house that has chicken feet, and the house moves, and there's also like an undying skeleton. It's part of like this whole folklore story of a needle that is like essentially that's his heart, so that if he snaps, that's how you kill him. But the needle is inside of an egg. The egg is inside of a rabbit. The rabbit is inside of a wolf, and it just I think there's like whole layers to it. So yeah, that's like cool. There's like folklore here and there, but nothing like the Christmas lads. The Yule lads. That's fucking awesome. You guys have a whole squad. There's 15 of them. It's like a remix of what's called Snow White. That's what it reminds me of all the films.
Yeah. Just like fucked up Snow White. Yeah.
That's interesting. I never knew that that Icelandic culture was so rich in that regard. So do you guys have like a what are the traditions? Like, do you have like a parade that goes through the main cities like on Christmas, or like what are like some of the social events that you guys have there?
The only tradition I was ever aware of growing up as a child was instead of stockings on the 12th day of Christmas, you put your shoe in the window, and like your shoe gets like every night your shoe gets like a orange and some other bits and pieces, and you do that for keep it there for each night.
We have that too, actually. In Russian culture, we have that too. You don't like leave it outside or anything, but on Christmas morning when you wake up, or rather New Year's morning, because we used to follow the Gregorian calendar, so our dates are a little fucked up. But yeah, you would wake up on the 1st of January, and there would be like a little candy or something in your shoes.
Other than that, it is just like a Christian nation, so all the other Christmas traditions are just normal Christian Christmas traditions like mass and stuff like that.
Would you guys would you guys cut down your own trees or like get like a shitty plastic one?
We don't. As the saying goes, if you're ever lost in the woods in Iceland, just stand up. We don't have any trees. We cut them all down to make like boats, centuries ago. So now we just have like new growth forests that are not very large or anything. So we just import our wood.
Gotcha. So not much of a real Christmas tree market. You guys are okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. What other? Can't really think of any like Russian-centric traditions that we have. We have a weird holiday called Old New Year's though, that we celebrate on 6th of January going to the 7th, where like you remember the old year. So the whole point is to just kind of remember it. But it's weird because the timing, the way that it works is you have like your Christmas that happens on New Year's, and then 6 or 7 days after you have an additional holiday. It has like more religious overtones to it, so it's not necessarily like just like Christmas holiday.
Yeah.
But that's like really the only other tradition I can think of. Yeah, besides like just getting together, good food, drink, all that, presents.
Yeah, nice.
How long did you say that you lived in Iceland for?
For like the only sort of stretch that I lived there for was basically a year. Living with my mum. Other than that, I've just been like back and forth here and there for like as long as I can remember.
You have a family still there?
Yeah.
Of all the immigrant groups that I've ever met in my life living in Canada, I can't say that I've met too many people from that region. Just like Iceland,
like Scandinavian.
Yeah, not too many Scandinavians here. We had an exchange program once where they came over for like a couple of weeks. We had some students in our school, but yeah, I don't really meet too many people from that diaspora. Typically in Canada, it's like Southeast Asia has a huge presence, Eastern Europe as well. India, obviously, especially in the last couple of years. Some Americans here and there, but not too many people from that region. Do you find that there's a presence of people like that in the UK that come from those countries, or not too many?
There is actually, no. To be fair, there is. Yeah, we do get a few Scandinavians in general. I've happened to. You don't really get any Icelanders in the wild. Yeah. The only times I have come across Icelandic people in like, well, at least in London, have been like really weird, the same situation where I've happened to sit next to them on a table in a pub, and I've just like overheard them speaking, and I realized that they're Icelandic. And these like two separate, independent occasions. Just sat down at this table with my girlfriend, and there was just a couple on the table literally next to us, and I was just overheard some words, and then they're Icelandics, and just leant over and chatted to them. And I thought that was impressive enough because that was the first time I'd come across any in the wild. And then there's basically the same situation. I went to a Weatherspoons, it's basically a bar, pub, whatever. Sat down on a table, and I was wearing chainmail at the time, and there was just like table of middle-aged women behind me, and they were all like talking about my chainmail. And then I turned around, and I was like, "Are these nice?" And they were like, "Oh, sorry." Funny, but yeah.
Do you have a photo of the chainmail on your X there?
Yeah. Dude.
Is it like, I mean, you bought it, right? Like you didn't make it yourself?
Yeah, yeah, no, I bought it.
I was gonna say that would be a pain in the ass. Is it as heavy as it looks?
It's like, what is it? It's like 10 kilograms spread out over your shoulders, so it's quite nice. If you, check your DMs. Check your DMs, son.
Oh yeah, I remember this. Yeah. That's a fucking baller move, dude. That's a baller move right there. Showing up to the citizenship ceremony like that, dude. That's fucking holy shit. That's dude, tier 1. That's beautiful. That's actually that's a fucking baller move. That's awesome. That's like if I went in full Cossack gear to my citizenship ceremony.
They loved it. They thought it was fucking great. It was hilarious.
That's awesome. First of all, the fact that you fucking own chainmail, that's fucking in and of itself, that's fucking sick. But I figure you would need one to walk the streets of London these days.
That was the motivation. I mean, that's just the way I see it. Is that, you know, ye old England is beset by roving bands of backward savages who prowl the land, stabbing people and each other with swords and daggers. So this is basically just like 10th century Britain all over again. So you might as well dress the part.
Yeah, because you guys don't have like well, for the most part, anyways, at least like we have here in North America, and you know, with gun violence, it's not nearly as big of an issue, or not as big of an issue as stabbings. Because for you guys, it's all about the fucking kitchen knives and shit.
Yeah.
Which is wild, because that, I mean, I don't know. To me, I'd rather get shot personally. Like I'd much rather get shot from a distance, you know, rather than like having to deal with someone like up close, like you're fencing with them. Like I've seen some footage of people in the UK, just like fighting in a chip shop or something, and they're you could see like they're jousting, like they're going back and forth, trying to make it happen. Let me see if I can find this one clip, because it literally it put me back. I was like, dude, this is actually like you said, it's like fucking 10th century England. Like, what the fuck is this shit?
Yeah.
Probably get a million results just off of this. Or not. But that is wild, that like that knife crime is like it's a serious concern over there in certain regions.
Yeah.
Here in Canada, what the problem that we're dealing with, at least in certain sectors, it's auto theft. Because when Justin Trudeau came into power, one of their provisions was to remove mandatory minimum sentencing from certain crimes, which also included auto theft, which has really only ramped up in the last couple of years. It actually... Sorry?
Who could have seen that coming?
Well, yeah, right. Hindsight 2020. But it got so bad that I think it was a player for the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is, I believe, the most expensive NHL franchise in North America, our home team here. One of the players got fucking carjacked outside of the stadium, like downtown, in full view of everyone, just straight up carjacked. Let's see if I can actually.
Yeah,
find
we've
the
had like
story.
we've had like members of parliament stabbed to death.
Whoa.
Members of parliament robbed in the street, like had their phone snatched recently. Yeah.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, this only happened like 2 years ago. I was at a cinema. It wasn't downtown. My mistake. I confused it with the other carjacking. Sorry.
Easy mistake to make.
Well, see, the funny part is, and you do have to laugh, otherwise you'd cry. The police in one of the municipalities here, there's a clip where they actually tell people to leave their car keys by their front door, so that they don't give the intruders any excuses to start fighting over the car keys with the people that are inside the house.
Over. It's over. It is Jover at that point.
Like, when the police is telling you that it's safer to do, I don't know what to make of it. There was another story where this guy in Montreal got his he put an AirTag in his car because he knew that like the risk of getting carjacked is so high these days. He tracked the AirTag down to the shipping container where they had it in like the Montreal port, and he went to the police and he's like, it's on my I have it right here. It's the address and everything. The AirTag is there. Please open the shipping container and get me my fucking car. And they couldn't do anything about it because I don't know. I guess there's some laws surrounding it where the police can't get involved unless they have, whether it was a warrant issue. I don't know. But it's gotten that bad where the police can't even, like, their arms are tied.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you saw the video, but like Lawrence Newport's Crush Crime thing, he was like, "We're here, downtown Westminster, in the view of Parliament, literally on the doorstep of Scotland Yard, the HQ of Britain's police."
I did see this video. Yes.
Yeah, CCTV everywhere. Our phones, phone's gone, and they just don't do anything. Yeah. Oh, bike. It was a bike that stopped.
Yeah, it was a bike. Yeah. They had a bike. I remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of it. I guess until like some parliamentarian's son or daughter gets carjacked, or like God forbid, because I don't want anything bad to happen to them, but if that's going to make them pay attention, then I mean, I don't know. There's not much for us to do. You know, like in the US, even with their ability to have like self-defense written into their constitution and all that, because here in Canada, we don't have a right to self-defense. I can't even buy like mace. I can't buy like pepper spray or whatever to defend myself.
Yeah.
Or even brass knuckles or anything like that. And even if you do have like a licensed gun, it's very, very tricky with the law, because you have to believe that your life is in danger or have like probable cause for that. But even in the case of the U.S. with what is it Daniel Perry? I think his name is Penny, who, even though I would say from my perspective, just from understanding the story, he was fully justified in what he did. That even there in the court of public opinion, people were going back and forth and saying, "Oh my God, how awful this is! This is insane! Like, how could he get away with this?"
Yeah.
When he saved all those people, effectively.
Yeah.
I mean, are we just waiting for vigilantes to become emboldened?
That's how it feels sometimes. Yeah.
Because
I do see some of the.
No, sorry. Go
I do
ahead.
see some of the wildlife. I do see some of the wildlife around London. You know, some of the like particularly interesting crackheads. Like, there's a guy. Like, I just recently had a sort of. I posted about it. That kind of situation where I, was. Like, I sort of watched a couple of boys like almost beat this younger lad to death in the street. And like I phoned the police at the time, and they were like, "Oh, we can't take a call because of exceptional demand." Sorry.
Wow.
Like this is basically off the back of that, and then I was like walking out the train station towards my place, and there was this like schizo guy just like walking up the pavement with like just a wooden, like, what was it? Either way, it was some, you know, some form of wooden stick, and he was just kind of like smacking it on the wall as he was walking. And like it wasn't bad or anything. It wasn't anything particularly interesting. But like I just kept seeing these things, and now there's a guy, this like schizo guy, muttering to himself, like smacking a wall with a stick. And I was like, fucking hell. Do I need to just like run up to this guy, take the stick off his hand, and like placate myself by sort of handling this? Like, why is there a fucking schizo guy with a stick, kind of being mildly threatening? Why am I like watching kids get beaten up in the street, and there's like police aren't even like answering the phone? Why is everything suck and no one's doing anything about it? You know. Of course, it wasn't really that bad, but you kind of, you know, once you kind of just keep seeing these things like over and over again, you start to kind of, it piles up a bit, and you're just like, wow, everything is just shit. Everything sucks, and everyone's just weird.
It's hard not to be black-pilled. That's very difficult, especially like if you're living in these urban centers and you're seeing this just on the face of it. I mean, even at my job, we had to call the paramedics at one point because there's a lady across the street, like she was walking her dog, and I guess it pulled her too hard, so her head just smacked into the pavement. And this is like a 60-year-old lady. Like, that was really bad fault that she took. So I got on the phone with 911. And the first thing that they do is they put me on hold for like 2 minutes. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what the fuck? What do you mean you're putting me on hold? What the fuck do you mean you're putting me on hold? What if I was getting stabbed? What if literally anything was happening and I needed assistance? So I just have to listen to this jingled music as I'm getting my arteries slashed? Like, are you out of your fucking mind? Hire more people, man. What the fuck? Like, Jesus Christ. Like, I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
There was actually a recent case where something like this actually happened. There was a break-in in a house where the entire family essentially got corralled into the living room, and the father's like trying to like make the call to 911 undetected from the robbers, and he got put on hold too. Which I like, what are you supposed to do at that point, especially if they have a gun pointed to your head? You know, because a lot of organized crime here in Canada has a lot of connections to the U.S. naturally, and they bring the guns in here no problem. Through some connects that I have in the city, I could get an AK if I really wanted to, and yet the government is patting themselves on the back saying we're getting rid of the guns. It's like, all right.
Yeah. No, I believe you.
Yeah, it's been a little wild. I mean, I just personally myself, I used to work in this region in Ottawa. It's our nation's capital, for anyone that doesn't know. And there's a little place called Byward Market. It's like the party center, I guess, of the city. It's just off of Parliament, which is right here. And if I can actually find it. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, so this bar right here, this bar is actually older than the city of Ottawa. Has a lot of great, interesting history because Parliament is right there, and the politicians would come down, and as you can see, there's a lot of these like little rooms here. Well, that's because it used to be a brothel, so they'd come down after their parliamentering, way back when, and in these rooms. I actually remember they were just big enough to fit a bed into. That's all you need, right? Like that's literally all you need. And over time, obviously, like the space got revamped, and there's people that live there. It's kind of like a weird co-op situation there. But this whole region, which is supposed to be kind of like tourist central, you have all these bars and all these little shops and these interesting places. Obama actually famously visited this bakery here. So this is kind of like the hub for Ottawa if you're looking to party or whatever. And man, the stories I could tell of just working here, I used to work in bars as like a dishwasher and a cook. I would walk down, take out the garbage, and I see all these tourists, and then I look down an alley or a back street. there's a guy just straight up shooting up, snorting, doing God knows what, and it's just everywhere in that whole region. One time I saw a girl, she was standing by a bus stop, and she was like looking one way. The guy was coming at her from the other direction. He took a swing at her and missed, like by like centimeters. And I'm talking like he swung. He lost his center of balance, and she just like didn't even see it coming. Just goes right past him. And she's just dumbfounded, like holy fuck! I could have fucking cracked my head, and God knows what could have happened. But over the years, as I worked there, I just saw it get just more and more seedy to the point where they had to like start power washing their area because of how much shit and piss there was.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I don't know if they got that going on in Iceland. I highly
No,
much doubt
no.
it.
I mean, you do definitely notice the sort of immigration stuff in the sense of like the vagrants, because like in town in Reykjavik, there were like homeless people, but you knew them. Like everyone in town knew them. It was like literally 3 or 4 guys. Everyone knew their name, and they just kind of did the same. Like they just sort of hung around in the middle of the town, drank, kind of chatted with people, and just just didn't really get up to much, and just generally up to homeless things.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden, like I was there like last winter or something, and there's now like full blown crackheads who are like going into buildings and like taking the bathroom cubicles to do like crack. And it's like, this is just completely alien. This is very new, very strange. Who aren't even Icelandic, so it's just weird, strange, annoying.
Where is the downtown core for you guys in Reykjavik?
That's like Ingolfstorg or like just type in like LAUGA. Yeah, Laugavir. Yeah. That whole like road. Oh wait a minute, is this like where is that? The high street is just like Laugavir, but I suppose there's like kind of multiple Laugavir. Type in the INGOL Ingolf Square. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so like there, that's like more or less downtown, basically. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, you wouldn't know it just telling by the building designs. They all kind of look uniform in that regard, but that this would be the downtown core. Very cool. How cold does it actually get there during the wintertime? How bad is it?
It can get down to like, -20 plus.
Oh yeah, that's not so bad. That's basically Canadian winters.
Yeah. Up there is like sort of more residential kind of like the further along you go up there, there's more like just sort of living. Yeah. Yeah, that's like the port side. Is there a fucking Ferris wheel?
Oh, cool! You guys got a Ferris wheel.
Dude, I didn't even know we had... Since when the fuck did we have a Ferris wheel?
Interesting.
Very interesting.
That's cool. I definitely got to go sometime because I've heard nothing but good things about tourism in that region. Just the landscapes alone, it's very beautiful.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I think it's bedtime for me.
No, it's fair enough. I was actually just gonna ask. We just hit the 3-hour mark there. Appreciate you taking the time coming on today. I hope you enjoyed being here. I'd love to have you on sometime because, like I said, I know very little about that part of the world, and you know, getting a little bit some exposure here and there is always good. Especially that now that you guys got the LFG shit going on there. That's awesome. When I saw that pop off, that's great, man. That you definitely needed. Definitely needed.
Very much, very much. But yeah, thank you and everything. This is very fun. Very nice.
Yeah. Glad to have you. So in terms of socials, Base North Manor, that's your main. Any other pages you got that you'd like to shout out, or?
Just buy my jackets. Dyson's Maintenance .store. That's all.
Hell yeah. Get yourself a Dyson jacket, guys. But yeah, so that wraps it up for this episode. Probably on sometime next week. I don't know what kind of guests we're gonna have on, but we'll see. And yeah, thanks again for coming by, man. It was great to have you.
Thank you. Bye.